2+2 is proud to bring you the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club.
This week on the Pokercast, John Beauprez, Aussie Millions, voicemails, and more. Now here they are, two guys not eligible for the T-Cop, otherwise known as the Turbo Championship of Podcasting, Adam and Terrence.
Welcome, everybody, to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. I am your host, Dave Schwartz, alongside Roscoe P. Coltrane.
I'm here.
Well, that's good.
We do this every week, right?
Hello, boys and girls.
Roscoe, and of course, joined from Thailand again this week, Mr. Terrence Chan. Terrence, welcome back to the show, sir.
What's happening? It's good to be chatting with you guys. It was a rainy, torrential downpour night.
That's terrible. I feel bad for you.
Yeah, what's interesting is that, like, what would you prefer, I guess, is the question. Do you like dry and cold, or do you like warm and rainy?
Dry and cold without question. Sunny and cold is perfect.
Yeah, that's the thing. Most of the warm countries in the world, like all the tropical hot countries, they just tend to be rainy. There are only so many like Los Angeleses in the world where it's just like hot and dry all the time.
Yeah. Your deserts, your other. But I hear you got into a little bit of a brawl with a masseuse. Is that true?
Yeah, no, that's funny. No, I mean, I found the best massage lady in Thailand. I'm trying to figure out how to human smuggle her back to Hong Kong so that she can just work on me through all my fight camps and all my training and stuff like that. Yeah, I had a pretty hard day of training yesterday. I went. The kickboxing I did in the morning guy was a hard ass, and then we had some wrestling practice, and wrestling's always hard, especially when you're the smallest guy in the room. And then I was like, well, better go take care of my body and Thai massage, go to my favorite girl. And, she just laid into me. And I was, it's the biting on the pillow kind of massage sometimes. But, it's a rough life. But, I guess in theory it's supposed to be good for you, right? Like to have somebody put it on you like that with the deep tissue. Guessing. At least I keep telling myself that.
That's the idea. I mean, I remember getting one of those and just having to just lie down for 5 hours or something. It was brutal.
Yeah, I'd like to know what like professional sports teams. I mean, I know they all travel with like massage therapists. Like your NFL, your NBA, your NHL, your Premier League soccer. I'm sure those guys all travel with their massage people and their chiropractors and the whole crew. But I wonder if it's like a health and well-being, whether it's like a relaxing massage or whether like like LeBron James or Steph Curry is getting somebody just driving their elbows into like their calves after a night of like a tough game of up and down the court.
Yeah, I'm sure that happens. They got those guys. They think they have it rough. They think they're out there working their asses off. Come on, they're not really, are they? It's running up and down a court. There's no contact.
There's certainly no contact, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't. As a guy who as a short guy who always was wanted to go out there on the basketball court, but was constantly limited. I always just have a little bit of basketball envy sometimes because I enjoy the game of basketball, but not nearly the ball handling skills required to be 5'6", 5'7", and be good at it. So I found face punching, which has weight classes and by extension, like height classes, sort of.
Big Baby is an athlete. He's in the NBA. This guy is like 300, waddles up and down the court. Come on, he's not a baseball.
Well, what's crazy is like the NFL guys who are like 340 pounds now and run like the 40 in like 4.3 seconds or something like that. Like how does a man the size of like like at your average like living room couch, just get up and down, like run that fast. Like how is that even a thing? Like it doesn't even it seems to defy all laws of physics that somebody like that can run that fast.
pretty crazy. So it is Pokercast 396, January 28th, 2016. Today on the program we have John Beauprez. He is a World Series of Poker champion and a PLO guy, so we're going to get into some PLO, some tips, some strategy, some discussion in the second segment with John. And I got a bunch of stuff.
So we just leave the Ross report to him now?
Yeah, I think we should. I was thinking, well, they're actually going to be our new sponsor, too. He's coming on board with being our new strategy sponsor as well in the Pokercast.
Hey, awesome.
His site, PLOquickpro.com, is...
It's not a coincidence.
Is jumping on board, so we're going to have a bunch of PLO stuff. One of the things we were thinking of was incorporating it into the roster report somehow, where we talk about a hand and then we get the actual correct decision on what a real PLO teacher thinks that we should have done, or Ross should have done.
So Ross can get to do the Patrick Antonius That's Correct drop, as well as the Family Feud buzz out for his own hands.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Indeed.
The most you can bet or raise is the size of a pot.
I want to send a shout out to a listener of ours, Mark Dorsey. He took down a DraftKings $200,000 guaranteed prize pool event this weekend. $3 buy-in. He ends up winning $11,000 for first. 76,000 entries. He put in 4 entries of $3 for 12 total, and ended up taking the whole thing down. Congrats going out to him.
Oh, come on. We all know that average people who enter 4 entries don't win any money on DraftKings or fantasy sports. You have to be Max Stillery and enter like 900 lineups across every single buy-in. We all know this didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. I hope they stop that. I think they do some single entry events too, but yeah, that's a problem.
So is Mark Dorsey, nice big score for him. Is that the single biggest Pokercast related score in the gambling world this week? Is that
that's the one we go to? Well, yeah. I mean that. What have we seen this week? Last week we had A.A. Jones who won $5 million on. So now we're a little bit of a step down to 11.
So you're saying there's nobody related to the Pokercast who successfully had a solid score of multiple buy-ins?
Yeah. Did you win anything this week? I didn't.
Crickets.
I didn't win anything this week.
Somebody sitting on the other side of the table from you played a poker tournament?
Yeah, exactly, and won a poker bracelet. Roscoe, did you see that a picture of a potato sold for $1.5 million? It's a black and white still of a potato.
No.
You missed that?
Thought
you might be interested in that.
I'm the potato giver.
You're the potato guy.
That's not the one that Ross sent.
It's not the one that Ross sent, but I mean, how different? It's a potato. How much different can it be than the one Ross said? Except the one on Ross probably said Merry Christmas or something on it. But I mean, a picture of a potato. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's literally a black and white still of a potato. This photographer.
It's very high resolution. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, that sold for $1.5 million.
It's got a number. It's potato number 345.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot.
So the first 344 potatoes paled in comparison.
They did not cut it.
They sold for like mid 5 figures at best.
Yeah, brutal. The NHL shut down, so we've got nothing to do up here in Canada. It's the All-Star break. The All-Star weekend is upon us coming up, but now that there's all the games are halted Wednesday on, we're all have to talk to each other, and
basically all the liquor stores are just like run out of everything. Right?
Yeah,
that's pretty much what happens. Yeah,
it's the restocking time. One of the guys, and this is kind of a funny story because the NHL has this system of fan voting for the players that go to the All-Star game. All-Star games are terrible in every sport. They just suck. There's no real way to do them properly.
They're probably the worst in the NHL, to be honest. Even though like hockey is both of our favorite team sports, I would say it's like probably worse. I mean, the NFL's Pro Bowl is pretty awful too. But like at least the NBA All-Star game doesn't suck because like people show off and do crazy shit. But like baseball has the whole home run derby and stuff, and people enjoy that. But I think hockey is one of those sports that's only good when it's being played at an intense level.
Right.
And so the All-Star game is particularly bad in hockey.
Oh, it's the worst. Nobody tries.
Because people are just trying not to get injured, basically.
Yeah,
right?
There's no defense.
You got like the superstar on every team, and like he's been through half a season, and he's like half his joints don't work already, and he's just trying to make his team get into the playoffs or like, win the division or whatever. So he's just out there like coasting. And then you get like 30 guys like that.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is the entire fan base of the NHL trolled the NHL. They voted John Scott, who is a enforcer. For those that don't know much about hockey, he goes out and face punches and goes off. He plays 5 minutes a game. Now he's in the NHL.
He's a protector. He has a very noble role in hockey. He goes out. He goes out there. He plays about what? I mean, how many things? 6 minutes a game?
6 minutes.
Goes out there, make sure that the stars on his team don't get run over. He has 5 career goals in 285 games. I know there may be people who don't know, but that's not a lot.
It's not a lot. It's 5 more than me. Let's put it that way.
It is. It's 5 more than you.
So, yeah, I mean, the fan base now voted him as the captain of the West All-Star team. He played in the Western Conference, and for some reason, I guess it maybe took off on social media, and the fans decided to take the piss and voted him in as the captain. Now, instead of and John Scott took it great. Like this is pretty funny. That's hilarious. I'll go. Yeah, sure, no problem. Fans want me to go. I'll go. And but the NHL didn't like it, and they conspired to figure out a way to get him A, out of the Western Conference, and B, out of hockey, basically, before this would happen. So he wouldn't be able to play in the All-Star game. He got traded to the Montreal Canadiens in the Eastern Conference for a mean-nothing trade that neither team clearly was making for a real hockey reason. And I think Scott ended up getting sent down to the minor leagues. People are like, wait a second, why are you doing to this? He didn't do anything. He's just out there trying to make a living, skating around and playing in an NHL team. And now
it's not his fault he's not the second Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
It's like he goes out there and he does his job. He plays his 5 minutes a night, punches people in the face, and tries not to give up a goal when he's on the ice. Like that's his job.
And for the league to go out of their way to do stuff like this is just infuriating.
They're just trying to humiliate him. So yeah, totally free John Scott. And so what I don't get, and maybe you can explain this to me, is the NHL pressured Phoenix, which is the team he played for.
Yeah.
Into trading him to Montreal. So,
right.
like you said, trading him from the West Coast to the East Coast. So I guess that makes him not eligible to play for the Western All-Stars. And then Montreal demotes him to Newfoundland or their farm team just to double make sure. Is that how that works? Am I understanding that correctly?
No, I think what happened, and I don't know 100%, I'm guessing, is when he got traded to Montreal, they've orchestrated this trade to Montreal. Montreal's like, well, we don't need him on our team.
We don't want this
guy.
We're
not going to dress him, so we'll send him to the minors. Fine, he's on his 2-way contract, whatever. But, so I don't think it was let's blackball him to the minors. I think he just got traded to a team that really didn't need him.
And you actually hurt his living, because you said 2-way contract, which means he makes 10% of what he would have his salary before. And not to mention that his family lives in Phoenix, and you're sending this guy from Phoenix to Newfoundland. I mean, no, I don't want to offend any of our listeners. We love you all. Newfoundland's great and everything like that. It's not really where you want to go in February when you're coming from Phoenix.
Yeah. If you're coming from Phoenix, right?
I mean, Phoenix in February versus Newfoundland in February.
I think I picked Newfoundland. I'm all over Newfoundland. I bet it's great out there. I've never been, but I want to.
I've been.
Yeah, I'll bet it's fun. Anyway, so yeah, just a little bit of a bone to pick there with the
screw the NHL. Basically.
The NHL. Why don't we do an Internet Poker's Wall of Fame? We got by the way, we got a lot of the guys up this week on the actual thread, the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame thread that is in NBG, in Internet Poker Forum and our forum. Was updated with a bunch of our...
So you trying to bump the thread in NVG too to get some...
Was it obvious?
Some more, yeah, oh yeah. But then it was obvious, but Chainsaw took the bait, Snap took the bait.
I know.
Which was great.
That was good, yeah.
It's sort of count on Chainsaw to always bump your thread with his opinion about anything.
Yeah, but thanks to Seriously Serious for doing up some of the write-ups in those. He obviously has got a great sense of humor with his videos. Etc. And he did a great job.
Did you find out when he's going to start making more videos? I mean, I guess they're expensive.
I think so. Yeah, I think he's busy doing other stuff. So I didn't ask him if he's
no more music parody videos from Seriously Serious. The world is a sadder place. One day, one of those videos might just make the applause.
I think it's true.
What's your vote? Which one would you be your favorite Seriously Serious music video?
Black and yellow was always good.
Yeah, it's mine too.
But I think it's the problem with Thomas is he's not a confrontational guy, and he didn't want to. A lot of them were pretty harsh. He's trying to be funny, and he's making jokes at people's expense. I don't think he was 100% comfortable with that all the time. But
really, so like a guy, he just came out of nowhere with. Or it's not like speaking of people being pressured to do it, and nobody made him do that stuff. I assume he wanted to do it because like
fun, yeah.
He wanted to make fun of some people.
I think it probably took off more than he thought it would. I mean, those videos got a lot of exposure, and people maybe that were the brunt of the jokes maybe didn't take it so well. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing. But
Black and yellow was great. Can we have that coming out of a break, Ross? Can we have part of Black and yellow coming out of sometime?
Was Khalifa or
seriously?
He
might have taken it down.
I've never seen it.
He might have taken it down.
You've never seen it, Ross?
No, I haven't.
It's fantastic. All right, let's get to the this week's Internet Poker's Wall of Fame. This week, I got a private message from one of our listeners at 2+2. His name's Joe Total, and he thought it was high time that we put one of the legends of online poker up on the wall. And he's right. This week, we're going to put up Victor Blom, Mr. Isildur 1. His place on the old Ipwaf was always guaranteed right from the start, and it's time to get him up there. He started out in 2008 with a small deposit. Within a year, he was up several $1 million playing in online poker's biggest games. The swings he would take, legendary. He up and down and up a house, down a house. He was seemingly immune to the psychological effects that winning or losing $1 million in a day would emotionally destroy any other online player. Like, just watching him play was amazing because he'd lose the biggest pot in online poker history and just fire up another Mayan. Like, it just wouldn't faze him, and it was almost like money meant absolutely nothing to him. And fun to watch. And I think the highlight of maybe his career, but not his career, but the railbirds in us watching him play poker was the night, I think it was 2009, he decided to take on Phil Ivey, Tom Dwan, Patrick Antonius, all at the same time. 3 tables against each, 9 tabling, head up, no limit hold'em. Playing, I think it was 500, 1,000, and just up and $1 million down. It was the entire poker world turned into railbirds, and we're watching. It's the most amazing thing ever. Never forget that. A couple of years later, of course, Brian Hastings and his buddies ended up taking $4 million off him in one day. That didn't stop him though. Even that, like, he loses $4 million is probably most of his bankroll. He's back at it, and of course has been playing this year and last, and was one of the biggest.
He is the biggest winner this year.
Victor Blom.
Or no, I mean last year he was.
Welcome to the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame.
Internet Poker.
T, were you there the night he pulled that off, watching?
I was not one of the railbirds going down at that time, but of course, you hear about the buzz the next day where clearly but yeah, I mean, you talk about playing those guys all heads up. Just imagine if some guy shows up and decided to box all the heavyweight champions of the world at one time. It's like, I'm gonna fight Mike Tyson here, and then Evander Holyfield on this end, and Lennox Lewis on this end, and Klitschko on this end, and yeah, like it's insane. I mean, when we record. When the storybook is written and closed about the greatest degens in poker history, I mean, he's got to be right up there, right? Like who else compares? I mean, you talk about the old timers, the guys like Stu Unger or something like that, who just degened it up from Archie Karras. He's that level of generational level degen, and like you said, just not giving a shit. To lose 4 million in a day. I mean, like I once lost like 100,000, and I just was like in the fetal position. And like you said, he didn't care.
Didn't you do that in like 20 hands too?
Yeah, it was like an 18. No, it was 18 showdowns, but yeah, because limit hold'em. But it was probably in like 40 hands. It was just like obscene. And yeah, I mean, it's unquestionably deserves to be in the IPWAF, both on, for the good and for the highs and the lows. I mean, it's hard to think of a better example of a high stakes professional internet poker player on the exactly like the highs and the lows. Like he lost it all. He crushed it last year. It's tremendous. definitely first, definitely deserves to be in the first dozen or so of the IPWAF, even if he won't ever necessarily make, say, the Atlantis Resort and Casino Wall of Fame.
He's the only IPWAF member to ever take a dump in a room service cart. That's for sure.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But he played without a HUD. He jumps in the biggest deuce to 7 game in the world, plays against the best, learns new games against the best in the world at the biggest stakes. You could say, yeah, like we were saying, he's a degen and he shouldn't be doing that stuff, but that's kind of what makes him awesome to watch.
It's not what it's about for him.
Unquestionably. It's hard to think of anybody with the brass balls that big to do that kind of thing. I mean, it's and you talk about how many people watched the thing and how it captivated the imagination. Is there really sort of anything that sort of captivated the imagination of online poker? Maybe the first Dur Challenge, or maybe when it was first outed the first time that Phil Ivey was playing poker online or something like that. But I can't think of very many moments that had that level of railbird, excitement in them.
Indeed. No, I think that was the pinnacle of the online poker excess, I guess I would call it, for sure. I mean, you had so many guys playing high stakes for nosebleed, just giant amounts of money. One house, click a mouse, whatever it was, 1 Ferrari, 2 Ferrari that were playing, and that was the night where it all just kind of came together. It was fun to watch, no question. It was just I was shaking my head the whole time, like, wow, this is really happening. All right, so we'll get to Mr. He would have been nice to have Victor on the show. A lot of the guys that we've thrown up on the wall, we've been able to talk to for a few minutes. He's not exactly the interview type. Doesn't like doing a lot of press, so I didn't think there was much of a chance we were going to be able to land him to have him on for a quick minute. But if anybody,
even when he was signed, even when even after he got signed, he still didn't really do any media, despite the fact that he had the biggest, the most well-rumored or hyped up. I'm pretty sure he's the only signing that ever got his own press conference or his own sort of party, right? When he was signed, when it was coming out, there were never rumors of anybody else might be signed, and it's probably this guy.
And they didn't know who it was at the time,
and he still didn't do any media.
Yeah, no, he had no interest in doing it. Welcome to the IPWAF, and hopefully, Sirius will do a nice job with that write-up, I'm sure. All right, let's get on to some In Case You Missed It.
How did he miss the open goal? 6 by 4, and he comes up 0.
Oh, no! Oh, yes, he missed it.
He's missed it! How on earth did he miss that?
In case you missed it, the Aussie Millions is in full swing. The 100K challenge is down to the final table. The main event, I believe, is down to 30 somewhat, I want to say, somewhere in that range. Your leader, Samantha Abernathy, right now. She's got 1.9 million in chips. Tony Dunst in second, 1.6 million. Andy McLeod, James Obst, has 1.4 million. Ari Engel, Bodog Ari, has 723,000. So lots of names on the leaderboard. Down under, I think it was 1.6 million for first, 732 entries, 30 left. Pretty good turnout. That place always has a big number for their main event. And Ross, you've been watching some of the Twitch stream of Jason Somerville?
Yeah, I've been watching every night while I've been playing on Stars, and I've been really happy with the broadcast.
Is it good?
It's nice that, on the EPT live broadcast, they don't show hole cards until the final table.
Right.
I'm not sure why they do that, but they've shown hole cards the entire way through in this,
nice.
Which has been super nice because it's it can be incredibly boring to watch without hole cards, and when only a couple hands get shown down an hour.
Jason's doing a great job.
Jason's doing an awesome job. He's been having good guests.
Production values are really up there too.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed they've got some on-screen graphic overlay, which is you don't see that a lot on at least poker Twitch streams that I've ever seen.
Right.
Because most poker Twitch streams are just some guy's internet stream or some guy's online stream. But they've got some overlays. They're able to overlay some tweets. I mean, they've clearly spent some money producing this stuff. I guess probably Jason's been given a budget by the Aussie Millions to sort of promote this and do this. But they're really stepping up their game on this one.
Mm-hmm. And the 100K had a shot clock, which was pretty cool.
How long was the shot clock?
It was 30 seconds to act on every street.
Probably got a button.
And you have two 1-minute decision buttons.
Yeah.
So it was great to see, there's there's game theory that goes into using your decision buttons and, shot clock and it was really cool to watch and also sped up the game a lot.
So
I know even you guys
did anybody use a button with aces?
Yes. Federer Holtz flopped the third nuts. And two people went all in front of him, and I guess he was trying to trap Jason Mercier.
Behind him?
Yeah, and he used the button. And
so we have a three-way all. There was already two people all in, and Fedor was trying to trap a fourth, like a
no,
player.
it wasn't a three-way all in yet. It was a bet and a call, and then he tanked and went all in with the third nuts. Obviously, a pretty snap decision. He flopped a queen-high flush.
Yeah,
and Jason Mercier had aces with the ace of spades on a 3-spade board, and then
called.
Brian Rast had top pair, top kicker, and he ended up trapping Brian Rast, I think, with the long thought. Obviously, Jason was snap calling.
Who has no equity, like Brian Rast has all
Zero,
has his run house equity. Like getting Jason's money in there is not a big win because Jason still has 7 outs against him.
Yeah, and he's still snapping.
Trapping top is pretty good.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that was kind of funny to watch. It was pretty awesome. He ended up losing that hand, Jason Mercier.
Did either of them feel slow rolled? Because I would want to do that. Like I don't know if I'd be able to pull the trigger on using a time bank with the nuts because I just feel like,
slimy?
God, people are gonna fucking hate me. And like I mean, because it is kind of a slow roll, but it's sort of like a rules accepted slow roll.
Totally.
Maybe in this context. You're given this because it does cost you something, right? Like it's different from a regular tournament where it doesn't cost you anything to slow roll someone.
Yeah,
but how did they take it?
Well, he ended up losing the hand, so they couldn't really complain. The spade rolled off, and Jason Mercier had everybody covered.
So I'm curious about the shot clock. Does that make people like? Let's say we were all playing Terrence, and you and I, we had a 30-second shot clock. You and I play fast. We're going to throw our hands away. But now when we have a 30-second shot clock every hand we're dealt, now people maybe they slow down and they use the 30 seconds where normally they would just snap fold. What did you notice, Ross, when you were watching the people with the shot clock?
Nobody was saying. I mean, nobody was tank folding pre-flop often. There's a few guys. I think like Byron Kaverman is kind of a serial tanker.
So he was taking his whole 30 seconds,
and he was still taking a little bit of time. But yeah, I really like that format.
We'll get to some more discussion about this later about the World Series, Terrence. We've got this issue coming up this year. There was a conference call today regarding some changes that were happening in the World Series of Poker. One of them, the discussion always comes up about a shot clock, and there was some discussion about it that we'll get to in a bit. So, but I did want to mention the 100K challenge is down to a final table. They got 41 players into the 100K challenge. Ben Tollerane is your leader, 1.5 million in chips. Connor Drynan, second, 943,000. Jason Mercier is in third. Fabian Quas and Sam Greenwood also at the final table. And Federer Holtz is the short stack. So that'll get jumping on Saturday, I believe.
And
the 250K challenge coming up.
Igor Kurganov fired 5 bullets into the 100K.
Into the 100K?
Yeah, and didn't even come close to cashing.
Yeah, it's not. Jesus.
Do you think that's GTO?
Well, I mean, it's one after another, right? So is each individual decision plus CV is the question, right, Terrence?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, if theoretically, at least, if your first bullet is profitable, your fifth bullet is profitable too.
That's true.
There's bankroll considerations in there. I mean, if your bankroll is limited, then obviously firing the fifth bullet may not be a good idea, especially when you've got a really soft 10K coming up like a day later. But I mean, it shouldn't make a difference. Like, given an infinite bankroll, it shouldn't make a difference whether it's your first bullet, your fifth bullet, your seventh bullet, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, I think he's playing the 250K. So,
well, the prize pool changes, right, as you fire bullets. Does that alter?
Yeah, but that doesn't matter because your equity in the prize pool is still going to be one over the number of entries.
The 250 is rebuy also.
Looking forward to that. It's gonna be fun.
Hopefully Igor doesn't get stuck a cool million.
Couple mil. Crazy story out of Puerto Rico. I don't know if you guys saw this. Earlier this month, 31-year-old Henry Martinez, he ODs in his hometown in Puerto Rico. Apparently Henry loved to play poker. His dad asked the funeral director to embalm him and dress him up in casual clothes like the ones he'd go play poker in and play poker. He wanted to have one last poker game. So they dress him up in like a Yankees hat and a Yankees hoodie. And all his buddies come in and they prop him up in the 5 seat. And he put his hands on his tail. I don't know if you saw the pictures. It's freaky.
I saw it.
It's really weird to look at. He obviously looks like a mannequin because he's been embalmed. And his buddies are all sitting around the table laughing and joking like they're having one big poker game. I mean, he's got a bunch of chips in front of him. Of course, then all the drawing dead puns start and all the other bad jokes that are coming out. But it's just bizarre to see. And I guess some of the guys in the game, they didn't know he was dead. They just thought that
what?
They didn't. They thought it was V Stern.
Oh boy!
Oh boy! Somebody had to do with the bad. Everybody's making bad jokes about this. I figured I had to do it. Kawasaki. All right. In case you missed it, speaking of people that should be embalmed, Ray Bitar,
don't encourage him.
CEO of Full Tilt Poker got married in October. Apparently, back in 2013, of course, you'll remember Ray pled guilty to bank fraud, among other charges. His lawyer said putting Ray in jail would be a death sentence, as he has a grave heart condition and only has a little time to live. It is funny that he had grave heart condition, and now it's fine. I agree with that. I think I remember all the way along. It was like Ray's going to die. He's in terrible shape.
Yeah, I remember that too. Like everybody is like, he's on his last legs, and he's going to die. Like that was the thing. And boy, I want his lawyer if I'm ever in trouble.
Oh, no kidding. And you'll remember Alan Cunningham said in a post on 2+2 that, according to him, Ray Bitar is unlikely to live more than a couple of years and is nearly penniless. This was in 2013. And now he's getting married. Did you see the girl? She's like 10 years younger than him, like a supermodel, whatever, right? And he's lost...
Supermodel, stripper, I don't know.
6 and 1 half.
That's such a fine line.
And so... It's bizarre because here he is. He's lost a whole bunch of weight. He looks totally healthy. He's doing whatever. He's all the pictures. It's just sickening. And then you'll see, and you remember, his lawyer said, look, he cannot spend time in jail. He is going to be dead within 2 years. So putting him in there is inhumane. And he didn't get jail. So I would assume that this is because of his condition, right? And I guess somebody on Facebook found a picture that she'd posted of her standing by a brand new $100,000 Mercedes. Look at my new baby. So, penniless, I doubt it.
Well, she's a supermodel. She can afford it, right? Clearly,
I guess maybe that's where she got the money. But he obviously clearly has. I'm assuming he has a bunch of money that he hid away from the government and has now accessed it or something. I mean, let's do the math here. This is, 10-year-old hot blondes don't go for, or 10-year-old, 10-year younger hot blondes don't go after guys who are...
As a man with a daughter. That's one of the best slips ever.
But, here, the guy's going to die. He's broke penniless. He was fat, out of shape. And now, come on, this does't add up.
He's actually looking pretty good in the picture, in his wedding picture. Like, he looks like he's slimmed down. Like, his face looks thin and lean. It looks like he's been lifting weights and eating organic vegetables for the last year and a half or whenever the last time we saw him in public was. He looks good, like you said. This is one of the biggest scams ever. Either that or a miracle of medicine. But yeah, apparently he even duped a guy like Alan, who I consider to have a lot of integrity, a lot of honesty. He's been in the game a long time, so I don't think Alan was set up to would have set this up if he didn't believe it, to be like, oh well, let's set this up so that Ray can run free because he's such a great guy. Alan, I don't think was as happy about it, things at Full Tilt as much as anybody. So he probably got duped into this too, and thinking that. The quote, the headline quote was, Ray Bitar is penniless and will likely die, is likely to die penniless in a couple of years. he was probably just as much a pawn in this as anybody, and they played the judge in this case like a fiddle. It looks like. I mean, like I said, I want that lawyer if I am ever in trouble.
No question about it. That man created a lot of pain for a lot of people. Yes, a lot of people, most of the people got their money back. Some people still haven't. But he was the direct result of people not having access to a large amount of their money for many, many, many years.
Think about, there's probably people who could have bought a house.
Their whole lives changed, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. They could have paid for college or whatever, or bought a house or something like that. It's pretty disgusting.
All right, in case you missed it, T-Coop is in full swing right now. So let's bring in Brian. Brian, of course, the tournament director extraordinaire over at PokerStars. He's been handling the T-Coop and is going to join us again this week. Hey, Brian.
Good evening, guys. What's going on?
Not too much. We're just going to quickly here talk about some of the stuff that's happening in T-Coop. I see there are 2 repeat winners in a pretty short series. I thought that was pretty amazing. Sal UGR Italy Faziano and Buzzard 1881, who just took down a stud high-low for his second win of the series, both within a week. The whole series is only 10 days, but pretty amazing accomplishment in this kind of format.
Yeah, not something I expected to see in T-Coop. One of the things about turbo events, just by their nature, is they're very high variance. And, the Buzzard 1881 accomplishment is quite something on its own. I mean, one of the fields was 600 and some players, and another one was, a similar size. But then I look at, what'd you say, the guy's Sal?
Yeah.
Italy?
Yeah.
I look at the field sizes he was playing against. He beat out a field of 4,650 people in his first win, and then 2,633 in his second win.
That's pretty amazing.
That's monstrous.
And to do that in a span of 3 or 4 days, that's incredible.
Yeah, that is incredible. Buzzard won his in a smaller field against some stud high-low players. Some stud high-low players.
But even still, 665 people first, in that kind of thing. I wanted to ask you, Brian, I mean, I know it's kind of not apples to apples because the T-Coops tend to have smaller buy-ins than the Scoop and the W-Coop. Well, I guess, the Scoop has the mediums and the smalls. But what are field sizes relative to those events? Because that sort of gives an indication of how many people. I know for me personally, the Turbo makes it more accessible to me because I know it's not going to suck up my entire day, and I'm also in a weird time zone right now, so where I can't play all the time. So what are the field sizes when you try to hold the variables constant? Do people like the Turbos?
Yeah, the field sizes for T-Coop are really healthy. We see lots of tournaments in the thousands. I would say that for a lot of the events, the field sizes are comparable to Scoop Low or even Scoop Medium. Field sizes are either equivalent to or slightly larger than W-Coop. The W-Coop events are just significantly more expensive.
So basically, if you hold the buy-in constant, people really seem to like these things.
Yeah, well, at a constant buy-in, I would say that the fields are bigger in W-Coop, but I'm saying overall, standard T-Coop event is about $100, $82, something like that. Whereas a standard
does T-Coop have the same number of satellites as those ones, or probably not as much? Is there as much support in the feeding system for T-Coop?
T-Coop has significantly lower amount of satellites than either of the other 2 series. W-Coop, for example, we start satellites 6 weeks out for the main body of the series, and for the main event 3 months out. T-Coop satellites started, I think this year, 2.5 weeks before the series started. And there's lots of reasons for that. One of them is that there's really no point in starting satellites a month out for T-Coop. Part of the reason is, you have the Christmas holidays and a lot of people aren't very active. And then even for the more expensive events, a lot of the target audience is off at PCA. So, they're not on the client as much as they would be. So, and that's also one reason that T-Coop will pretty much always be at the end of January rather than in the middle of the month, because we don't want it to overlap with PCA.
Makes a lot of sense. Those T-Coop satellites are fun, though, because if you're going to play a satellite, presumably you're in a hurry. And, there are a lot of hypers and a lot of real quick satellites to try and flip your way in. And it seems like it's more a better format. I haven't played a lot of satellites for Coop or Scoop for a while, but the T-Coop ones are pretty fun.
Yeah, it's something that we've been working really hard on. Started out a little bit in Scoop with developing ways to get more people involved. And then it really blossomed in WCoop to the point where, like I think I mentioned on the last broadcast, that most satellites to events, which are $10 or more expensive or $7.50 or more expensive, actually have satellites to those satellites. And we've gotten to that point now in T-Coop, and I'm going to continue on with that for the foreseeable future, as long as they work. So pretty much anything that has a buy-in of $7 or higher, if you can't get into that, then we'll give you a satellite opportunity to get in, and you win your seat to the satellite, and then win the satellite and go on. It's always great to see somebody who got into an $80 tournament for 22 cents and then ended up cashing and increasing their bankroll.
We talked last week about some of the guarantees. Since we talked, it looked like the thousands of players from most events, Brian, and the guarantees were either. It's this tough game for guarantees, right? You want to have that carrot out there for people, and you want to be relatively accurate with when you throw a guarantee up there. You don't want to just make it low so it gets blown away every time. You want it to have an actual carrot out there, and I think just maybe one you barely missed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had one that came up a bit short. It was event 14. It was a progressive super knockout for no limit on the high-low. That was another one where we changed the format and changed the buy-in significantly from the previous year. It was $82, I think, a 1R1A last year, and we changed it to a $215 to progressive knockout, and it just didn't do as well this year as last year. Actually, I think it was an 82 progressive super knockout last year, which
Gotcha.
was a great buy-in. But by and large, like you say, we've done really well. We had a big progressive super knockout on the 24th at $1 million guarantee. It got 1.36. We ran a big ultra knockout today, which guaranteed $700K and actually got 1.05 million in the pool, which was really nice to see.
Sure.
Of course, I'd like to spread some of that extra money around to the event one. It's funny, was myself and a couple other script writers were talking earlier in the day about, you always wish during a series you could go back and spread the guarantees around more appropriately after the fact.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You have ones where you absolutely killed it, and ones where you missed.
We were talking about the No Limit Deuce last week, and it hadn't come up yet, and you weren't sure how it was going to go. It drew over 600 players and almost doubled the guaranteed. I was happy because now it'll stay on the schedule, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That was a good one.
It did very well. Matter of fact, I think it beat last year's number. Let me look, and I will tell you real quickly. Event 12. No, I take that back. It did not beat last year's number.
But still did well.
Last year, however, it was a $27 buy-in, and it got 1,136 players.
Okay.
This year at 82, it got 649. So it beat last year's prize pool by a significant amount.
Less players.
And you got no limit 5-card draw to sweat tonight. I mean, not a huge guarantee, but probably one that you're sweating a little. Yeah, I guess you probably sweat all the non-hold'em ones a little bit, right?
Not so much. I mean, it is $25K. If I didn't think we could make a $25K guarantee, it wouldn't be on the schedule.
Wouldn't be on the schedule, yeah.
It's possible it could miss, but honestly, I wouldn't expect it to miss by, the worst it could possibly miss by is 24,000 and change, because it needs 3 players to start. So,
but you would need like a server crash and a worldwide internet outage lasting a couple of hours for that to most likely happen, or something like that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And
people know when there's an overlay, right? Like, so even if you have never played a hand of 5-card draw in your life, and really who hasn't played at least one hand, at least a couple hours of 5-card draw in your life, you go ahead and see that there's some massive overlay for this $82 tournament, a price point that's accessible for most poker players. They're probably going to jump in there if they're seeing the value, especially around that late registration closing time.
Yeah, there was a story years ago. I don't know if it's true, but that we were running a high-low tournament in W Coop. This was right before I came to work for the site, and Johnny Bax saw the overlay that was apparently about to hit. Had literally never played stud high-low in his life. Signed up and won the tournament.
Yeah, that can happen for sure. We've talked about it even in live poker as well. But online poker more, when you have this wide variety of games offered in a series like this, people who've never played the game are going to jump in and have some fun, especially when it's a small amount compared to their bankroll. You go to the World Series, you play an event you've never played, it's $1,500, $2,500. Here it's $82 or something to have some fun.
I've never seen an overlay miss at a World Series event, Adam. So I don't know what you're talking about.
No, and I'm just saying that people playing
they live
games.
in a nice world where they don't have to deal with guarantees.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. I mean,
2+2 is hysteria. Brian hit some high levels this week. There was a thread started about the event number 8, No Limit Hold'em event. There was a player, Ivan Haldi, who was a Russian player. He was head up at the final table. They both had their deal-making box checked, and the moderator, the PokerStars moderator, came in, gave him the ICM numbers. The match was paused. The other player, Luckbox Stammy, immediately agreed to the deal. Nothing from the other player, Ivan Haldi, and then the mod sent him a message when they didn't hear back from him. It's a pop-up, I guess, on your software that you can't really miss if you're playing poker. And still heard nothing. And then they had somebody try and call him. He's in Russia. They had a Russian, I guess, CS person try and call this player, and he didn't answer. An hour goes by, so they restart the tournament back up. The guy's playing, and Luckbox Stammy ends up taking it down. But everybody was screaming that it was a bot. Did you get a kick out of that thread a little bit?
Kick out of it? No, I definitely wouldn't say that. As for the events as they were happening, I'm definitely familiar with them because the call to restart the tournament was mine. I was talking with the support agent at the time, and I said, I told him, well, there's really not anything we can do if the player won't respond. I mean, he's clearly ticked the box to pause the tournament, but he doesn't have to answer. All he has to do is play his cards.
Right.
Is there a limit on how long you'll give somebody to make a deal? I mean, I've seen some of these. I've watched some of these deals. I understand people are playing for crazy money, but there's all these negotiations back and forth. Is there sort of like a time, or is it every case is different and it's a judgment call? Like sometimes people are chatting, sometimes one guy's not responding, and it's a 7-way deal. Like how do you make sure that this doesn't drag out into like 2 hours of people's chat box and not actual any poker getting played?
Well, it really is a judgment call. If things are really stalling and there's just nothing going on, then we'll nudge them along and be like, are we discussing here? Should we continue playing? What's going on? But if they're actively negotiating, then the guidance that we always give to the hosts is stay out of their way. The main thing in any deal discussion is that we are not part of that discussion. It's not our money that's at issue. It's the player's money. And the main thing we should always try to do is stay out of it in terms of not affecting the deal. You see sometimes in live play, you might hear a commentator say something about, that's not a very good thing to do. Or we never, ever want to do that, where we have somebody saying on the table, this is a good deal, you should take it, or something like that.
Right.
You never want to make the players feel rushed. And one of the other things that strive to do is to make sure that the other players at the table do not rush anyone, and then that they don't bully anyone into so situations where a player's thinking about it and, like a couple of players would make a threat, like if you don't agree to this deal, we're going to gang up and take your chips, something like that. No, we're just not having it. You can't, you're not going to get by with that.
Right.
But as for this player in particular, no, I didn't get a kick out of the thread. In fact, I honestly, it bothers me. It kind of reminds me of a bit of a mob mentality, where one person gets an idea in his head, shouts it out into a crowd, and everybody's yeah, and they grab their torches and their pitchforks, and here they come. There's absolutely no evidence that this player was a bot. Our game integrity folks have done their due diligence, and they're satisfied that the player was not an automated tool.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about multi-table tournaments. We're not talking about cash games, right? So
Right.
it's a completely different animal.
Yeah, and so just be subject to the same investigation that every final tableist and every Coop event is subject to. And that's really all there is to say about that. Honestly, I found the thread kind of irresponsible. I understand where that sort of thing comes from. I understand that there's a line between a healthy level of paranoia and an unhealthy level of paranoia when it comes to people using tools to gain an advantage. But honestly, the idea of an MTT bot getting to heads up in a Coop event is ridiculous.
Agreed, yeah. Fair enough.
If somebody ever gets to that point with programming an automaton, we're all doing it.
Exactly. We might as well pack it in, right? Indeed. Okay, no, I just wanted to quickly get your take on that. Sorry if I got you upset there. I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine. Like I said, I'm actually glad to have an opportunity to address it because like I said, I know quite a few of the posters probably listen to this.
Maybe.
Podcast, and although probably a lot of them are asleep by now because I've been talking for a few minutes. But,
nah, all good.
But I do think it's an important thing. I think some of the people who post don't really understand how much of a voice they have in the community, and they can make statements out there that catch fire really quickly.
Yeah.
And, we could basically have a player getting cyber lynched for no reason other than he didn't chat. What if his keyboard was broken?
Right. There's a million reasons why he didn't chat. He didn't want to. He was just playing on. I think he was playing in.
What if he changed his mind? What if he panicked? There could be a million reasons.
Sure.
We don't know.
No, fair enough. But we're looking forward to coming up. We got the high roller and the main event coming up this weekend, I believe. So I'm sure Stars is getting ramped up for that. The satellites are going crazy for those.
Not yet for the high roller. They will be starting either tomorrow or Saturday.
Okay.
But for the main event, satellites are going nuts all over the site. The Mega Path is going crazy. Already guaranteeing, let's see, what are we at right now for the Mega Path? We've already got 82 people in the final. So that's guaranteeing at least 25 seats in the Mega Path final. But also in the last round 4, there's already 500,000 stars coin in that. So that'll be another 519,000 divided by 70. That'll be another 7 seats. So we'll probably put 50 or 60 people into the Mega Pass. So that'll be great. People starting out with one or two stars coins and getting in.
Hope though one of those guys takes it down. Makes for a great story.
Oh, I would love it. I'd love it. I'd love to see somebody. I mean, I'm not rooting for anybody because I'm not really supposed to do that.
No.
But I wouldn't mind seeing somebody who got into the main event for 1 star coin winning the main event. That would be fantastic.
Would be a lot of fun. Thanks so much, Brian. Really appreciate your time and pulling you away from all the tournaments. I know you're right there involved, so hop on back in there and make sure everything's running smoothly.
All righty, guys. Thanks again for the opportunity to talk to you. Always enjoy it.
Thanks, Brian.
Take care.
A couple other things to quickly mention. A couple of VIP promotions. The VIP Bash this Saturday, 20 seats added. 5,000 stars going to jump in there. 100 million player celebrations is happening. They have 100 million players signed up at PokerStars now.
You're going surfing on the internet.
Very nice. I love that one. Love that the old AOL drop.
The AOL one's good. 100 million players in their database.
Let's hope they don't all register for the tournament. Otherwise, there could be troubles.
Crashed. Yeah, exactly.
Just playing poker on internet.
They're having a big celebration in February. They're giving away 100 million stars coin in the first 2 weeks of February. Complete 3 VIP steps between February 1st and 14th. Win up to 1 million stars coin. Complete 10 steps to win up to 2 million stars coin. Be sure you got to check in. You got to option check your option to join both of those challenges starting on February 1st. So make sure you do that if you're playing.
Does anybody else, when they hear Stars Coin, think of like something like Mario Brothers, where like you just 2 million Stars Coin? I just think of like Mario hitting the question mark over and over and over.
2 million times.
His like coin eater in the top bar, just getting up to 2 million.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to like do some sort of like animated GIF of something of that nature.
That would be great. In case you missed it, the game of Go is now ruled by computer bots. A bot beat the world champion Go player 5-0, and it was always
European champion.
Sorry, the European champion. It was always thought that Go was this game with way too much of a decision tree to be able to be conquered by. At least that's how I remember it being talked about. But it looks like that's not the case.
Well, I don't think anybody ever thought that like it would never be conquered. I mean, I think it's dumb to say that the computers can't do anything. I mean, I'm sure computers will be performing surgery on us and doing a lot of things in the.
I mean, it was talked about as something that was going to be a long way off, really difficult.
10 years was sort of the thought, right? Like people thought, like they're basically 10 years ahead of schedule. That they thought that they were going to be beating world-class Go players, and now, like you said, they just beat the European champion 5-0. And so yeah, it's considered to be much harder, much bigger game space than something like chess, because the game tree, like you said, is really big, and you can't brute force it nearly as much as chess. Like on your average turn, supposedly you have 200 legal moves compared to 20 moves in chess, and of course you've got the 200 legal moves, and then the other guy can respond in 200 ways, and then you can respond 200 ways to that, and you just get this exponentially really gigantic, even for computers, number. So yeah, I mean they're basically. Skynet is ahead of schedule, is what's going on. Although technically, I guess they're behind schedule because I think they were already supposed to be online by now. But yeah, I mean, I guess we just talked about a situation where a bot was in fact not beating humans now, but we do have other situations where they are beating humans. So yeah, so depending on whether you think our computer overlords are benevolent or malevolent, that's good news or bad news, I guess. What are your thoughts? 20 years from now, are we all going to be their slaves and they're going to be just executing us for like polluting the planet or whatever, or do you think they will be our friendly servants like the Butler and Jetsons?
The singularity is upon us, and we are all going to be slaves. Yeah.
Are you good? Are you singularity is a good thing, Adam, or singularity is a bad thing?
Well, it remains to be seen, I guess. I mean, it's hard, right? I mean, we have an economy built. No, I know. I'm about to. We have an economy built on so many things that that robots are going to take over, right? In the foreseeable future. But our economy is built on those things. So, do we survive that? I don't. It's going to be.
But I don't know. People have been saying that. Like when ATMs started taking over in the 80s, people are like, "Oh my God, this is putting bank tellers out of jobs. This is terrible." And then robots started building cars, and they were like, "Oh my God, there's going to be like massive unemployment because there's so many people are unemployed." Build
it
cars.
Shifted. I mean, certainly you could look at the auto industry and say. It certainly cost a lot of jobs and they shifted the economy. But when you have
but the end result was that cars are like cheaper and better than they've ever been, right? Like you've got, I mean,
right.
Cars are so cheap now that like everybody in China has 3 of them, and we've got a different problem with carbon emissions, right? Like we just got really good at making like pretty efficient, pretty safe, pretty fast, powerful cars. Of decent quality, and they don't cost very much money. I mean, that's what it ended up being.
It did, but it shifts the economy, so people who are building cars go do something else. So what happens when there's no something else to go build or manufacture?
Who says we need jobs, right? Like that's
I don't know.
Sort of thing.
That's the question. That's where I go. Wow, how can we build an economy without all that?
Yeah, like I'm 60-40. I think it's like. If I had to put a line on it, I would say it's like 60-40 that the singularity or like computers taking over will be good for us. And there's like a 40% chance like they just erase us. And it could even just like, there's some interesting stories about like how we could be erased. We could just be erased by like one line of code going like, eliminate all humans or whatever, that kind of thing.
Right.
There's some pretty funny stuff. I don't want to dive too deeply into it, but it's certainly scary in some ways, but I'm still generally positive that it will be good for humanity.
Did you see Ex Machina?
Didn't see it.
I did not yet, but I've heard it's good.
Yeah, it's quite good.
About the singularity?
Yeah, it's sort of about that.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a break there. We got some more stuff to get to. Coming up after the break, John Beauprez is going to join us to talk some PLO. You are listening to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. More right after this.
Middle position makes it 2,500 to go at 6-12. Button calls, and I peel with 8-7 off in the big blind. Flop comes Queen 7-6 with a diamond flush draw. I got none. I check, middle position c-bets 4K. Button folds, and I call. The turn is a 5 of diamond. I lead this time for 13,000, and he calls quickly. The river is a jack off suit, and I bet again, 32K this time, and he snap mucks.
Team Pro Online's Marc-Andre French Dog Ladouceur is a Supernova Elite VIP. This is the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club.
Attention everyone not named Alan Kessler. Have someone you would love to appear on the PokerCast? Have someone you don't want to hear again on the PokerCast? Head on over to the Suggest a Guest thread in the PokerCast forum at 2plus2.com, and Adam will do his best to make you happy. P.S. Chainsaw, you can post too. Hey, poker fans, don't forget about the 2plus2.com digital magazine. Each month, a wide array of poker professionals and media write fascinating articles about the game you love. Want to learn about big blind versus small blind hand ranges? How about optimal Jeopardy daily double strategy? Topics like those and many others are covered every month. Head on over to 2plus2.com to see what the magazine has to offer this month.
What's up, everybody? This is so unfair. Haters everywhere. Just because I wear black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. I've got all I need. Dignity for greed. Through these veins I bleed. Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. I'm chilling and can breathe. The plan went beautifully. I got that reparation money. It's the new UB. You talk shit, I pivot. I don't want to hear it. My defense is hard as a rock. You can't break my spirit. Well, you can be amused. White rapping vegan dudes won't seem so funny when you're busted because of super used. But that don't mean that you can't play so you trust with me and Rush. Just not making a fuss. Come and grind, cause I'm having fun. I'm hitting, running everyone. I'm gunning for you once I'm done. You stun like a Lubarski. You don't see me coming. I don't see how super using lowers enjoyment. Cheating's a minor ignorance. So please don't practice avoidance. This is so unfair. Haters everywhere. Just because I wear black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. I've got all I need. Dignity for greed. Through these veins I bleed. Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow. Since everyone has been so tight in the britches, what the hell? I might as well burn all of my bridges. But Nessa bites it. Cloutier, nice shit. Cloney's in an alley, looks like Ivy on a dice bench. Doyle's having strokes, there's a joke. Flack is broken, does more coke than Mikey Madison. Hey, I think he likes it. The Grindy was my boy. Then I joined it with Sirius. He's delirious, furious, but her confused and by curious. Now he wants to play heads up tonight. Thinks he's a
Welcome back to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. Coming up, we're going to be joined by John Beauprez. He's going to join us to talk some PLO. First, Terrence, let's talk a little bit of the World Series of Poker coming up in 2016 in the summer, not far away. There was a town hall held by the World Series of Poker on Twitch where people tuned in and they unveiled some...
Look at the WSOP getting all fancy with the new technology, right?
It's awesome.
You know, you give them a little credit for being the stodgy old guy, or give them a little shit sometimes for being the stodgy old guys. They're getting on the old Twitch thing.
They are, and it was, by all accounts, successful. A lot of people joined in and watched. KevMath took a bunch of notes and tweeted out a bunch of the notes. And so I'm just going to read off his notes. I'm sure we'll get into some more of these things deeper in the weeks coming up as more details are announced. But at first blush, it looks like 68 bracelet events this year. No increase in the rake, which is nice. We're always worried about that. Possible start times, we've been talking about that, 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. instead of noon and 4. But again, there's some people that aren't too happy about coming back and playing at 11 a.m. when they've been playing all night in the afternoon event. T, what are your general thoughts on that? I think you like.
They're also pushing up the start time of the afternoon event, right? So it shouldn't. So the afternoon event should end an hour earlier. So it shouldn't really make a difference, right?
People don't do, but you know how people are. They go to bed when they go to bed. You know what I mean?
Right. But it's the same thing on both ends, right? Like it's if you're the kind of person who goes to bed at midnight, say, then the noon tournaments to start, you're just finishing up play when you would normally go to bed. And if you're playing a 4 p.m. event, then forget about it, right? So it's just about finding the sweet spot where they get the most number of participants. So it cuts both ways on the when people go to bed and when people wake up thing. There's going to be some people who are sleep deprived one way or another. You could start the thing at you could start the noon event at the early event at 4 p.m. and start the other event at 8 p.m. And there will be people who love the 8 p.m. start. Yeah, like I love playing poker till 5 a.m. That's my optimum level of play. Like I'm really great at 3 a.m. of course, but you're going to alienate a lot of people who normally, anybody who goes to bed at midnight is absolutely not playing that event. So they, they're still, it looks like it's still not written in stone. They're still talking about it. The polls and the sort of discussion that I've seen seem to favor starting an hour earlier, and most of the people saying definitely it seems that most of the people who want to start later, like leave it at noon, leave it at 4 p.m., are most of the professional poker players and the regular players. So we'll sort of see who wins that sort of battle between the serious amateurs or the weekend warriors, the guys who only play a few events, versus like the guys who literally grind 50 plus events.
Yeah, indeed. They're talking about paying a larger percentage of the field, likely to 15%, making min cash less than 2 times buy-in. But I think that's always been there's been a lot of events where the min cash is less than 2 times the buy-in,
especially in the smaller fields, right?
Yeah, and they've been close to 15%, I believe, for a while. That seems like it may be a small increase, if anything. Day 2 restarts 12 hours after play ends for the night, so a minimum of 12 hours in between playing poker, which is good. I mean, you're asking a lot of people to come back right after they've been playing for many, many, many hours.
I don't know of a single poker player who's like in bed less than an hour after the last hand is dealt, right? Like, so we've talked about this on the show before, but like after a day of playing poker, you're usually just pretty wired, especially when it's tournament poker. Especially No Limit Hold'em or PLO, where it like involves lots of like dramatic moments and a lot of boredom. You're just sort of up and down. But almost everybody is like maybe 3 hours after you're done play, you're asleep. Like it's very rare to see anybody just play and fall asleep. I envy those people.
They apologized for the poor quality of the playing cards last year. They're going from those 300 to 330 micron cards. I guess that's thicker. And using jumbo index sizing, not sure what that is, experimenting with a number of plastic coatings that could make cards more rigid. We'll be testing cards at the World Series of Poker circuit events in the spring, and try and get a lot of those issues that they ran into last year solved before we...
Sorry, real quick, jumbo index sizing, doesn't that just mean the large faces on them? Like, normally you've got the cards, the standard WCP cards, they like, the ace or the king or the 7, that little corner pip is usually maybe like a centimeter, like a centimeter tall, a centimeter wide, and the large index cards are of course like the ones that it's got like the huge A or the huge K or J or whatever like that. I think that like basically like large face index cards, but definitely the more important thing than how big or small the indices are is going to a thicker, more rigid card that isn't getting marked, because that was just an epic disaster and embarrassing for the biggest, most important poker tournament in the world to just consistently have marked cards.
Yeah, that can't happen. The Colossus, as we mentioned before, is back this year. $1 million guaranteed to the winner. 3 days of opening flights, 6 total flights. Players will be in the money during each flight. Gives players an opportunity to cash multiple times, which will be strange. 4 cashes in the Colossus this year, and enhanced will call to reduce long lines to complete registration as players arrived early. Making sure the minimum...
Nikolai Evdokov's record going to go down because the 12 cashes in 1 year record that's almost certainly going to go down based on that.
Yeah, indeed. They're going to be making a capital investment to have automated registration systems, and it's like, thank God.
So what does this mean? They're going to have like an ATM where I can shove $10,000 into it and sign up for like a tournament?
Well, I would imagine you have a card with an account, and it's like when you go check in for a flight, you go in, there's a little kiosk, you take money out of your account that you have there, and it gets used to buy you a ticket, spits out a ticket for you. Sounds like it's a,
So putting money into like sort of like in a front money account, like so you've got some sort of WSOP credit on
right.
it. Yeah, it's interesting that you would use the airline analogy because like every time I use one of those kiosks, I end up having to deal with a human anyway.
Do you?
It's like,
That's true.
It's like you use a kiosk and then it's like, oh well, this could not be processed because like the information in your passport doesn't match, so you have to stand in the fucking line with everybody else anyway. Or you've got like a bag, so you've got to like check the in theory you're supposed to go to like the bag check-in line, but that one's closed, so you have to go into the general asshole line.
And you originally have to line up to transfer your money into the WSOP account. You have to deal with a human.
Well,
there.
you can wire it in, but
yeah, you should be able to that in, but you probably still the first time because of like the anti-money laundering stuff, you still have to go up to the cage and just go like, hey, is my money here? Here's my ID. Here's the thing I need to sign 7 pieces of paper. I'm sure you still have to deal with that, but I guess the thought is that once you've done all that nonsense, like registering for the day of the tournament, like say you wanted to play the Colossus or the Millionaire Maker, you maybe don't have to go through that gigantic line of 500 other people doing the same thing. Maybe you get to go to a kiosk and only have to wait behind 20 people. That would still be a big improvement.
I have a good feeling that we're not going to have to worry about robots taking over the WSOP anytime soon.
No. Regarding deals and chops, their tax consultants, their legal teams have been told that, or have told them that they're not to be involved in personal business issues. I guess countries have tax treaties with the U.S., and tax evasion, that kind of stuff, and wage garnishment. Remember, there's been, companies go to the cage with a garnishment against people when they cash out. So that all complicates matters, I guess. But people, they've been saying this for a long time at Harrah's and Caesars about not being able to facilitate chops. Meanwhile, other places will do it happily, and it's not illegal to do. So,
right. Obviously would love to hear Russ Fox's opinion on this because, he's been the biggest critic of the fact that they will not enforce deals and allow people to have their proper tax burdens. He's in fact said that the WSOP is in violation of whatever tax code. So I'd love his opinion on this, on their sort of statement.
Yeah, indeed.
You have the feeling his opinion would be different from that of Harrah's Corporation.
One of the things with shot clocks they talked about, they don't want TV to be a driving factor, but if shot clocks are added, it would have to be across all events. No plans to do this in 2016, which, it's a bit disappointing, but I guess there's some concern that when you give people 30 seconds to make every decision, that they're going to take the full 30 seconds and you start doing the math, and all of a sudden if everybody does that, which they don't, obviously they're not all going to do that, but this is how they go about making the decision. They go, well, then it'll be slower all of a sudden, which is really stupid because there are tournaments now that you can look at and see what's happened when you do have shot clocks and how it speeds it up. So, for them to just wave it off because they've done this math kind of is frustrating.
Exactly. The fact is, the problem in poker today is that the reason why people are tanking is because everybody else at the table is tanking, right? So like it just becomes this effect where everybody feels like they have to tank to balance their range and stuff like that. And you see when you get rid of this and you actually go to a shot clock that people stop doing this, and it's like I think the TV thing is like a straw man, right? Because it was brought to light when you made this V-Cern joke earlier, but at the WCP final table when you start playing like whatever it was 14 hands in 2 hours or something like that, it was brought to light. But let's not pretend like, oh, this was only an issue in the main event. Like this was an issue long before you got down to the last 2 tables of the main event. Like this has been an issue that's plaguing poker for 3 to 5 years, and it's a cop out for them to say that it's just a TV table. Well, the real problem, the real reason they can't go to shot clocks is quite simply because there are not enough competent dealers. That is 100% the biggest reason. And if they came out and said that, I would respect them because I actually totally agree. I would not be in favor of them implementing shot clocks in the World Series because there are not 200 or 300, 400 competent dealers that can run a poker game, much less run a poker game plus do this thing with a shot clock, because it's significantly worse. Like you look at something like the Aussie Millions, well, they do it, but their quality of dealers is really high in Australia. Both when I've played in the Aussie Millions and in Sydney as well, when they used to have an APPT stop, the quality of dealers is really high there. The quality dealers of the World Series is not high, and there's no way that they could possibly do it. And that's not taking shots at any dealers at WSP. I don't want them to write in or send me mail bombs or whatever. Yeah, but I think the dealers know that there's a lot of guys who suck. I mean, they probably have to push in a lot of these dealers who suck. A lot of times, you often get that too when you're at a table and you have just the worst dealer ever, and then finally that dealer pushes out and a new dealer pushes in, and they're just like a pro. Like they're fast, they're efficient, and then like everybody comments about how much better this new dealer is, and that person, and the new dealer's been following around the shitty dealer all day, so he knows or she knows that the dealer that they're replacing is garbage. So that's the big reason that they can't do a shot clock. I wish they would just come out and say it.
Yeah, and then they continued on talking about this issue, saying the main event payouts will not have the 10th and 11th place bubble like they did last year. You'll remember the imbalanced payouts at 10 and 11, but guess what? The final table was painful to watch after the bubble had burst, and they were down to 9. It was terrible.
Right.
So
exactly. I mean, yeah. I think the 10th, 11th bubble and the Joe McKeon factor definitely had a large role to play in how painful the last two tables were. But like you said, I mean, it didn't go away once it got down to 9.
Indeed. There'll be more coming out. They talk about Twitch. They talk about some other stuff that will, I'm sure, be more details will be talked about, and we'll get to the topics as we get closer to the World Series of Poker. But right now we're going to bring in our feature guest for the week, and that guest is the 2013 event number 4 World Series of Poker champion. This is the $1,500 Six Max. That was No Limit Hold'em, but his passion is Pot Limit Omaha. He's the founder of PLOQuickPro.com.
The most you can bet or raise is the size of a pot.
That's right, Patrick. That's exactly right. He is PLO Quick Pro's just signed up to be our strategy partner here at the Pokercast. So we thought we'd bring him on to give us all a little help with our PLO games. His name is John Beauprez. Welcome to the Pokercast, sir.
Hey, what's up, guys? Excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I was doing a little bit of research on you, John. I noticed you had a deep run in the World Series of Poker main event a couple of years ago, the year Joe Cata won. But I wanted to quickly, I think you were 53rd or in the 50s somewhere there, so pretty deep. Like you're starting to think about winning this thing. Give us an idea what it was like.
It was awesome. It's funny. I was telling a friend a while ago that although I was fortunate enough to win a bracelet, I think that going deep in the main, even I got 58th. I think that was more exciting almost than winning a bracelet, just because there's more of a camaraderie
right.
with the people who go deep in the main event, and it seems like a lot of more people are paying attention to it, and it's more dramatic. I mean, it's I think I made it to day 5 after the dinner break or something like that. It's just really cool. I mean, so. I actually believe that was the year that Greg Merson.
Oh, was it Merson?
Won it. Not the year that Cotto won it.
Right.
But it was an unbelievable experience. I mean, I was pretty emotionally worn out at the end. I can't even imagine what it's like to play all the way through to day 8.
Yeah.
But I remember on the day I busted, I had Jeremy Osmus at my table, and he was just playing. He pretty much destroyed me the entire day.
He's a heck of a player.
So, but of course, man, I mean, it's a pretty unbelievable experience.
It's interesting you mentioned that camaraderie, and I want to ask you quickly about that, because it's unique almost to the World Series of Poker, because maybe it's because you got a lot of casual players as well, and it's holy mackerel, look how close we are, that kind of thing, rather than the same old faces that are all playing for the same title. You run into the same guys a lot of the time. This you mentioned the camaraderie, and it's. I mean, do you find that the tournament actually plays a little different because it's like this? You're a team over here on this table. We're all trying to win, and maybe not knock each other out or take it easy on like they think that's going to happen.
I think it's just different because all of your friends are there. It's like sort of the watering hole of the poker world for a whole summer, right?
Sure.
And, of course it takes a lot of luck to win a poker tournament, but I think that the World Series is unique in that it brings together so many different players of different skill sets and also just physical locations. So in order to really go deep in the main event or win a tournament, in Vegas at the World Series, you have to beat weaker players, stronger players, old guys, young kids. I mean, you really have to
crazy Russians,
basically, crazy Russians, aggro Europeans, kind of the whole spectrum of players. So it is a pretty good judge of who I think plays poker the best, and part of being a great poker player is adjusting to any player type, and you really are forced to do that during the summer. So I think there's a camaraderie in that, and I think that also when people first start playing poker, they really do identify themselves with, maybe one day I could compete. I'd be lucky enough to compete in the World Series, and oh my God, if I was able to final table or God forbid, even win one of these things, they've been thinking about that their whole poker career. And I don't think they have that same thought about maybe like an EPT or something like that. It's just different, right? It's everybody kind of gathers around this dream that everyone has.
I think you've perfectly encapsulated the excitement that comes around the World Series every year. And just before you came on, Adam and I were talking about the WSOP Town Hall. I don't know if you caught any of that, but basically they're going over some of the 2016, and it's hard to get. We're getting close to that time of year where everybody's starting to get excited about going to Vegas and doing all these things, like you say, seeing these guys and having all your friends there, and once in a while you make a deep run and you've got the rail. But the main event, when you went deep, it always feels different to me. I've never gone deep in the main event really, and it always feels weird when I come in on like a day 6 and the Amazon room is just empty. There's there's only the tables that are required to fit the remaining players. It's so quiet in there. It's almost eerie. But I can imagine that sort of environment fosters even more the camaraderie of the guys at your table. I mean, you must still, you talked about Jeremy Osmus terrorizing you. You must still like run into him in the hallways sometimes and sort of like reminisce about that, or at least give each other the head nod or that kind of thing, right? And maybe the same with other people that you went deep with, right?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, it's really cool because the whole summer it's so packed, and you guys know that parking lot at the Rio.
Yeah.
You just get so used to going
the one
there
that you drive 3 times before you leave your car. Yes, that's the one.
Right. So you're used to it being so packed all summer, and then the main kind of starts off as any other tournament, and the whole parking lot is packed, and then every day it progressively gets a little bit more thinned out, and then by the time you're in the money, and then it's day 5, and even though it's a much more important day, there's really no cars in the parking lot, and even what's even weirder is you're kind of walking through you're walking through the Rio there on the way to your table. So they're kind of like boarding up the displays in the hallway, and you're sort of the last one standing, like it's in a movie or something, like you're Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom. And the Rio and Las Vegas is closing behind you. The summer is like dwindling down, and you have to play poker to get your way out. And every day there's several less tables left, and people are kind of walking past you, like kicking the can down the road, like sad that they went another year without maybe getting a big score in the main. And it's just like it's a totally different feeling. I think it's because the tournament is drawn out for so long, and the levels are really long, and it's widely covered by ESPN. It's completely different. Like I said, I mean, I really feel that I was more jazzed up about getting 58th in the main than I was about winning a bracelet. It was just so freaking cool. Like I would give anything to go that deep again. It was just awesome.
Yeah, I just found it weird when I was, we're in the money or whatever, and even I've had it happen at first tables, day 1, where somebody makes friends with you and they'll fold. You'll raise their blind and they'll show you like ace jack and fold. Hey, buddy, I'm not going to come after you. But even more so when you get into the money, like it's this weird thing of us versus them. And I even think about Jamie Gold. Remember when I got top? He was telling everybody the truth all the time. Like it was, I understand Jamie was doing stuff, but he also, it almost was that mentality too, and it just plays differently than any other poker tournament. It's quite strange.
Yeah, Actually, well, if we got time, I'll tell you about a 90-second story about my tale in the main event this year. I think it's actually pretty podcast worthy, so I'll just go into it.
Okay.
So, the previous year, I was doing pretty well online. Actually, I'd spent a couple of years really grinding up from the micros, and I was finally starting to get a little bit of momentum. And this was actually the fall of 2010, and then the spring, I guess, of 2011. And I was really starting to build up quite a bankroll online. And I had pretty much everything online. And then, of course, Black Friday happened. And if anybody ever asked me to describe what Black Friday was like for a professional poker player at the time, it was like waking up one morning and you lost your job, and also someone stole all of the money in your bank account, and you can't like really go out and get more money for that job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
so,
absolutely.
And since I had done like pretty well the year before, I still had to pay my taxes. So I actually had to sell my car to pay my taxes in 2011 because I didn't have any money. And it was just sort of a big decision point for me between, do I really want to take poker seriously? Like, am I willing to move somewhere else perhaps? Or like what steps am I willing to take in order to really take my poker game seriously? So I moved. I had moved back to Denver because I kind of had planned to play online, but then that didn't work out, of course. So I had moved back to Vegas to start playing live and work up my role again. And I was kind of on my last legs with all of the poker stuff, and I was playing I played Satellites for the main that summer in 2012 now. So fast forward 9 months, and I'm kind of building my bankroll back up, and it's not going very well. And the summer, frankly, wasn't really going that well either. And I played I was playing all of the Satellites to the main. And you know how they work out there is there's 800 people that play these $500 satellites to the main. And only, I guess if 800 people play it, they pay 5% of them. And so of 800 people, 40 get in. So the first tournament, the first satellite I play, 40 get paid, I get 41st. I literally bubble out of all these people, okay? And so I'm just kind of miserable. I'm upset because I really wanted to play the main. But I'm you know what? I'm not giving up. I'm trying the next day. So I go the next morning. These satellites take forever. They're 14 hours, these satellites. And then the next morning, I wake up and go play the next satellite. And this time, 27 get in for the main. And I get 29th. And I bust aces to tens. I bust aces to tens. The guy rivers a straight against me. So I'm just completely dejected. So the next day, it's the last satellite for the main. And if I don't get in, I'm probably not going to play the main. So there's 28 get paid in this one, right? And there's 29 left, and I have the shortest stack in the whole room. All right, so we're back on the dead bubble again, and I'm I'm just completely dejected. I'm thinking about this is terrible. I have I can only pay the change. Yes, I'm I can't wait to get the hell out of Vegas, right? At this point,
yeah.
And so I have a small blind. I can only pay the small blind and my ante. That's all of the chips that I have. I'm automatically all in. And you know how those satellites work. Everybody in the room kind of knows. Everybody in the satellite knows you're all in, and they're sort of cheering for you to bust.
Yeah, of course.
And
everybody limps.
And I'm thinking, please let me pick up a good hand, so that I can double up somehow and not dead bubble this tournament too. So, of course, there's four tables. There's I don't remember the exact arrangement, but there's 3 tables left, and our table's 7-handed. And of course, under the gun plus one calls, and everyone calls to try to bust me.
Yeah.
And I look down in the small blind because I'm automatically all in this, and I'm I'm either going to bust this tournament, everyone's going to get a ticket into the main event or not. And I look down, I have 5 deuce off. I'm I hate this game. This is just a nightmare. The flop comes a queen 7-8 rainbow.
Oh my god!
And I'm I'm almost to the point of crying. I'm just completely dejected. I'm and of course the turn's a 5 and the river's a deuce. So I 6 times up. And
please tell me you slow rolled the table, because that would have been by far the best part. Or you just pick up your hand and hover it 6 inches over the table like you're going to fire to the muck and storm off.
Oh my
That's
god, I think at that point I was too tired to even think about slow rolling. And just over it, right? So I can't even believe it. The guy that's next to me, I still remember his name. His name was Mike, and we were like high fiving because I had told him this whole sob story about how yada yada yada, and that guy ended up, and so I end up getting a satellite into the main, right?
Yeah.
From this. And getting 58th in the main.
Right.
And that same guy, he got like 45th in the main.
No
the guy that
way.
was like my direct left in that satellite. And so I'll never forget him. Like I still see him at the halls all the time at the World Series and like the LAPC and stuff like that. And we always reminisce. We're like, remember that time? Like you barely made it into the main. Like, and so it really does. You're completely right. It really does kind of build that camaraderie, and the World Series is great for that. It's the best experience for a poker player.
All right, so let's move from no limit hold'em tournaments in this case to some PLO, and that's the form of game that you teach. That's the form of game that many of us love. Most of us here at the 2/3 of the show here, John, love the game of PLO. Terrence is yet to come over to the dark side, I think.
What?
Are you playing all PLO?
I'm gonna go ahead and guess that I played more PLO than you in the last 2 months.
I played 10,000 hands this week.
You did? Okay.
I did.
Hey, Terrence achieved Silver
I don't
Star.
know why I'm getting called out on.
No, Terrence likes PLO.
Okay. Anyways, we're never shy to say how much we love the game, and Terrence, of course, is known as a limit hold'em player, but now, of course, plays other stuff. But let's get into it. People, our audience, John, is probably not made up of overwhelming number of PLO players. But we've got to explain to them how great this game is and how much more fun it is than No Limit Hold'em, and ways to break into playing the game. So why don't we go through some of those? I'm sure you've done some discussion about this with people on how to get the transition going over to PLO.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of good starting points. First, I would say, well, a big reason that people like to transition to PLO in the first place is because they think that Hold'em is boring or that the action is dead. And I think that it only takes a couple of times walking through the casino and see these guys sitting on massive stacks at these, 5-10 or 10.25 PLO tables that look like they're clearly not very good. And then you kind of go over to the reg-filled Hold'em tables, and it makes you really want to learn PLO. So I think that that's mainly a big reason why people want to transition. They kind of see PLO as the game of the future. So I think that a big something that's counterintuitive or a myth is that working on PLO is going to hurt your no limit game. A lot of no limit players, especially successful no limit players, are usually scared that if they invest some time learning PLO, that it's going to make their no limit game suffer. And I found that to just really not be true, actually. Most of the players that I know that invest more time in their PLO game, their no limit game actually improves as a byproduct. Just because PLO forces you to think about poker in a different way. It uses a different part of your poker brain. It really improves your post-flop play. It improves your ability to read board textures. It increases your willingness to gamble in close spots, which I think can make you a tougher no-limit player to face. So I think that those are all good reasons for people to play PLO. I think if you're really looking to hop into it, you have to evaluate where your game is. If you're a complete noob playing PLO and you don't know anything, you should do some basic reading on it. I've got some resources available at my site. I've also, I recommend people, Jeff Wang's books. He's got some good books that outline kind of fundamental strategy for beating lower stakes games. Some hand reading stuff, some like hand selection, basic starting hand requirements and stuff like that I think are good reads for people who don't know anything. So I think if you've got a little bit of experience and a little bit of a bankroll, that you can hop right into it. I recommend people start playing as soon as possible. I think that's
really interesting. I wanted to ask you, sorry to interrupt you, because the Jeff Wang book is the one that I've recommended that to people in the past. But a lot of people might look at the publishing date on it and say, well, I think it was 2009, and say like, oh, well, poker books from 5 years ago are never good. And I think it's largely true to some extent in No Limit Hold'em that there aren't a lot of that the game progresses very quickly. But so you're saying like a PLO book from 5 years ago is still very relevant, at least at the sort of low stakes, right?
Yeah, I think absolutely at the low stakes, it's certainly fine. I think a lot of times people create barriers to prevent them from learning something. I get that a lot, where people will write in and they'll say, well, this book is like 2 years old, and like, are you sure that this information is relevant? And I'm like, okay, well, what stakes are you playing? Like, I'm playing, 10 cent, 25 cent online or something. I'm like, I don't think that it really, I don't think that it matters as much as at the lower stakes. Now, if you're, let's say that you're a 510 no limit online pro right now, and your first stake is going to be, let's say you're going to hop into 1-2 Zoom or something on Stars. Okay, well, then I think that that's a little bit different. Maybe you should start with something a little bit more advanced. Right. But again, like I said, I think that the important step in the beginning is evaluating kind of what level you're on. Whenever people are really trying to learn PLO, though, I really recommend that they play as much as possible. People, when they're learning a new game, they get really excited and they get really enthusiastic and they get motivated about and excited about poker again, because there's just new things to learn, there's new lines to take, and they try to just spend all their days like studying and learning. Studying and learning is great, but people spend so much time learning how to speak poker rather than play poker. And they kind of forget that that's what it's about. And I always find that with both me and my students that they learn the most by playing, and just kind of getting used to what sort of ranges people show up in different spots. So the key is to find, get playing as soon as possible, identify your weaknesses, and put some volume in at a stake that you're not really playing for the money in the beginning. You're just trying to really nail down a logical thought process.
One of the things about PLO that I find interesting is the tilt factor in PLO, because you're going to get, especially when you're playing 6-max Zoom, you're going to get your money in a lot if you're not playing huge stacks. And when you lose, a bunch of flips in a short period of time, it's really easy for people to tilt. But when you do tilt, equities run so much closer in these hands than they do in No Limit Hold'em that you actually, I don't know if you come off tilt because you win a couple of, when you're tilting off trying to get your money and you win. Oh, okay, now I'm settled down a little bit more now. I kind of noticed that in people.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. There's more action. The average pots are bigger. There's re-raised pots have a much different dynamic than in Hold'em, that's for sure. And that could be an edge for the people who can sort of embrace the variance. And I think where the tilting factor comes from with people is they don't really understand. A lot of times they're just kind of confused whether they were supposed to get it in or not get it in a given situation. So their anxiety or their propensity to tilt comes from being uncertain about their decisions. And the more work you do on your game, the more certain you become about whether you played a given hand correctly or incorrectly. So, if you're, experiencing a lot of variance, but you think that your decisions are fine, you're going to be much less prone to tilt. But if you're constantly stacking off and sometimes getting it in bad and sometimes flipping and you're losing all of them, well, then that's when you start to tilt and get frustrated because you don't really understand. You can't be like confident that you're growing as a player or that your decisions are correct. And I think that that's where the tilt comes from.
I like how in No Limit, when somebody 3-bets, you're like, oh, I could just be dead here. But in PLO, you're like, this is exciting. Let's see the flop.
Let's see what I can flop.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you get so used to, and that was a big change for me when I went from No Limit to PLO, and then I kind of go back and forth, is I have to remind myself that in, 3-bet folding ranges in PLO are so low, typically. So, and in Hold'em, people fold to 3-bets all the time. So, I just kind of have to... I have to remind myself that, oh yeah, people don't have something very often in Hold'em, so maybe I should be 3-betting a lot.
Maybe we can get into that a little bit. I'd love to get into that because one of the things is, and I know you have on your website, PLO Quick Pro, you've got a huge discussion on 3-betting and how to deal with 3-betting, but what I was wondering was, do you think it's often correct for people for the opener to be very sticky playing against the 3-better in position, or whether is that just a natural part of GTO correct PLO, or is that just a tendency of people?
Well, it's certainly more correct to call to more 3-bets because you mentioned earlier the equities are closer. The positional advantage is nice. You can represent entire board textures rather than a specific hand like in Hold'em. And again, going back to the equity part of it, since the equities do, in Hold'em, the equities are much more polarized, so people can kind of get more checky collie out of position, for lack of a better term. Just because, there's way more way ahead or way behind situations than there are in PLO. So 3-bet pots play a lot differently in that way. So there is a lot more incentive to be calling more in position. But I also think that most players, a mistake that they make is they really overestimate their ability to call 3-bets out of position. So a lot of times, let's say they open the cutoff and get 3-bet by a button player. This is one of the leaks that I plug in the beginning is they call so loosely with 3-bets in position, but they don't really adjust that when they're out of position. And I think they just kind of see pre-flop sort of in a vacuum. They don't see that, all right, well, I'm calling pre, but then, I might have a poor hand that I might get myself in a situation where I'm like calling and then folding post-flop or getting involved with a hand that has like reverse implied odds or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're saying a big leak is people calling 3-bets and then check folding flops because they fold a bunch of their equity?
Yeah, check folding or just playing incorrectly in some other way. Maybe it's like check calling or maybe it's check jamming with the incorrect ranges. It's just kind of difficult to play against someone competent. I just think that most players would benefit from folding to 3-bets out of position a little bit more, even if it was like GTO exploitable, I guess. But I mean, I don't know. That's a leak that I usually see in players is they really overestimate their ability to. They just get in that. They just see that I've got 35 or 40% against almost any hand. Like I can't fold here, but they don't see that they could be putting themselves in pretty big negative EV spots later on.
Gotcha. Reverse implied odds, yeah. So when you're teaching your students that are coming over from No Limit Hold'em, what are some of the typically sort of things you do, that you see in your students that are pretty big mistakes by No Limit Hold'em players?
Well, I think that going back to what I said earlier about there being way ahead or way behind situations, I see that a lot of no limit players kind of polarize with the wrong ranges, or they don't see bet enough just because they think that they can check back and call bets and get to showdown easier, and then they get themselves in tricky spots when they kind of check back, they cap their range, and then they get kind of in a tricky spot with a 2-pair hand on a straightening board or like a flushing board. So I kind of find that no limit players, they really don't the no limit c betting strategy doesn't transfer over as well as they would like to PLO. I think is one of the main things. And
speaking before you move on to another thing, I just want to ask you quickly about that. So your c-bet range in position, like let's say you raise pre in the cutoff, big blind calls, flop comes down, and it's checked to you, and you have very little equity. Let's say you have, I don't know, queen, 8-9, and the flop's king, 7, deuce, rainbow. Now, when you start talking about hands where you have little equity in a pot, or I don't know, maybe that's not as little as I meant, but you're more apt to take you're more apt to c-bet that spot because to try and pick up the pot instead of checking back and giving up on the pot, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in that way, it's similar to Hold'em, where raising and c-betting is the name of the game, especially at the lower stakes. And just kind of raising and c-betting until they fight back against you is a big part of where your profit comes from. And so that part in Hold'em doesn't really change. But I could see a lot of no-limit players checking back that flop and then maybe like calling 2 streets incorrectly or something like that. I mean, and that's kind of that's a somewhat different board texture than I was thinking, but in general, that's sort of what I was going for there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you as you moved on to another point there.
Oh, it's cool. I would say another pretty big difference between No Limit and PLO is how monotone boards play. And that's of course because in PLO you have to play 2 in your hand. So, if it comes 8, 7, 4, all spades, and we only have 1 spade in our hand, well, we don't have a flush draw,
right?
Like in Hold'em, of course. You need 2 spades in your hand in order to complete a flush. So I think that out of all of the boards, like monotone boards play the most different than in Hold'em.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I would
because
say that's like yeah. Go ahead.
You find people who when you're playing now, I'll take stabs a lot of the times in monotone boards to pick it up, but you have people with naked ace will make the play, or it's hard to tell. Like if you flop nothing and it's a monotone board and you're just strictly bluffing, and you get called, maybe it's by a 2-pair hand, the turn is safe for you. You bet again, and you get called, and now you don't know what to do in the river when the river's fairly safe because maybe he flopped a jack high flush and he's just calling you down. Like it's that tricky spot with monotone boards as you get deeper in the hand.
Yeah, it's very tricky. I would say it's sort of akin to maybe like ace 8 deuce rainbow and Hold'em. It's just a very polarized board. Like the monotone board dynamic in PLO for sure. So I would say like something that Hold'em players have difficulty with is playing those particular board textures not as well as they could, I think. So something else that I noticed that Hold'em players kind of struggle with is that I think that they overvalue middling rundowns, or like they misplay them a little bit. So a couple of interesting characteristics. When people first transition over from no limit, I think a lot of people hear that Hold'em players or beginners really overplay aces in PLO. Like they play them like it's a no limit, and that is true. But I think in today's games in 2016, most people know that. Even beginners have heard that somewhere, that you shouldn't be just getting in a ton of money pre with like ace 8 3 rainbow or something like that, right? So not too many people have that leak anymore, but I do see a lot of transitioning no limit players really overvaluing a hand like, let's say, like 9-8-6-5 rainbow or 9-8-6-5 single suited pre-flop. I think that they think that like all rundowns are kind of created equal. Like they think queen jack 10-9 is the same as like 9-8-6-5, which is the same as like 7-6-5-3 and stuff like that. So I see a lot of Hold'em players sort of grouping all of those hands together when they're really not. Likewise, I think that they also overvalue hands like ace queen jack 10 with a suit. Like they kind of like put too much money in pre in some of those scenarios.
So Broadway hands as well as the middling rundown hands are the scary ones. So you've outlined three pretty.
Well, Broadway hands are good hands. Like ace queen jack 10 with a suit is a great hand, but it's yeah. I mean, I think it's like ace queen jack 10. I'd like to spend a second on that hand because it is a great hand, but it's similar to in no limit. Like in no limit, ace queen is a great no limit hand. But ace queen is pretty terrible against a tight range in certain spots, right? Like if you have a very nitty 3-betting range, well, ace queen's not worth very much, or something like ace jack. Ace queen jack 10 is kind of similar in PLO, where if someone has a very tight range, actually ace queen jack 10 doesn't play very well, and it can not play. You can really overplay it against a tight range.
It's sort of
like
adverse,
kind of like ace queen in no limit.
The adverse selection thing. It's a good hand until the other guy wants to put in a bunch of money.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the hands. Sorry, go to yep.
Yeah. So I mean, I wanted to ask. So you've outlined these three common mistakes about c-betting, about monotone boards, and about overvaluing rundowns. And I wanted to ask: is that must be quite different from cash games and tournaments, where obviously tournaments it's much more short stack play. You're maybe 35, 40 big blinds deep on average, as opposed to cash games where you could be 100, 200, 500 big blinds deep if you're playing live or if you've had a good session online, right? How does this kind of stuff maybe change if you're playing PLO tournaments?
Sure. Well, in tournaments, the shallower your stack is, the more value, the more you can get in pre, and the more value, like big cards have typically. I mean, middling rundowns are good, but I mean, in terms of raw pre-flop equity, some of those like weaker rundown type hands I mentioned, they're not as great when stacks are extremely short, but they are good when stacks are deeper and you can have some deception and you want to add in some hands to your for board coverage purposes. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of what I was going for.
Yeah, one of the things that I see is you were talking about middling rundown hands, and people will pile a bunch of money in, but they'll get themselves in really bad stack to pot ratio spots with middling rundown hands where they'll put in a bunch of money pre, and then if they don't flop at least something, they're out there and getting a bunch of money in really bad after the flop.
Yeah, it's just it's more so about. I mean, rundowns are an essential part of your game. It's sort of like suited connectors, I guess, would be in Hold'em. They're important. It's just that you have to kind of recognize the differences between all of them. I think that the big leak that I see is that people will see. Let's say it's like a hand like Queen Jack 10-7 is the same as like 9-8-6-5 or something like that. It's important to like see how different rundowns play against varying tight or loose preflop ranges.
One of the things I noticed, I mentioned I played a bunch of this week, and I played a bunch of Zoom, and one of the things I noticed is I'm raising a lot in late in position, and then I'm getting 3-bet a lot out of the blinds. And typically it's obviously there are the aces hands and kings hands in there, but a lot of the time it's like double suited trash. So it'll be like, 10 jack, 5-3 double suited type thing where they'll 3-bet me. A couple of players who I've got notes on will 3-bet like every time when they pick up these type of hands. And they ended up getting there, so I got to see them a lot this week. But interesting spot. And these guys I would consider good players, like some of the guys that I've played against who do this. They're hyper aggressive, but I wonder if it's a reaction to my stats that they've got on me, that I'm raising too much, maybe in position, or they just feel like maybe I'm going to give up on the flop. What kind of things would lead a good player to do stuff like that?
Well, let me ask you. Let's say that you're playing Hold'em. Why would someone be 3-betting you a lot from the small blind if they saw you opening the button? Like, what would cause a good player to increase their 3-betting frequency from the small blind facing a button open?
Well, if my range is really wide, obviously they're going to try and get me to lay hands on. But pre in no limit Hold'em, I'm going to fold a lot more than I am in position in PLO, right?
Yeah, so some people might think that you're folding too much, which, it's tough for me to say without looking at your HUD. So that could be one reason. They think that you're folding often enough to make the 3-bet immediately profitable. Second would be that they think you're folding to a lot of C-bets, or in one way or another, you're just playing poorly in 3-bet pots, either by folding to too many 3-bets or maybe stacking off with incorrect ranges, something like that. And I mean, it's a common strategy in a Hold'em to really pound button openers in one way or the other, right?
Sure.
And in PLO, it's the same. It's just a matter of how hard you want to pound them and which hands to choose. Now, one reason that you probably see good players or these people re-raising you with double suited hands is because double suited hands play very well as the SPR gets lower. So that's just because they have a what's called a smoother equity distribution post flop, which means they flop equity more often because they have 2 flush draws.
Right.
They have more hands to bet call with, more hands to check jam with, and stuff like that.
So maybe I'm playing too shallow. Maybe I'm not because I tend to buy in for 50 big blinds, and maybe that's playing too shallow.
I would prefer coming in deeper, certainly.
Okay.
I mean, I especially, I mean, the big benefit of being a little bit deeper is having a deeper SPR, of course, in 3-bet pots. So I would prefer to come in deeper. Okay. I think you're ready for it.
Oh yeah, I've been goofing around trying with different buy-in sizes to see what I could do with it.
Sure, and I mean it's the same thing that go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Please continue.
Oh, I was just gonna say. I mean, I kind of I tell students to pound button openers as well. It's a good strategy. I think what happens is a lot of times is players have learned that opening the button in PLO is a good strategy foundationally, right? So, but then they open the button with like 65 or 75% of hands, and then they get 3-bet, and they don't really know, even in position, how to play with these weak hands, right? So now they call because they kind of intuitively know that calling 3-bets and opening in position is good. Now calling 3-bets in position is good. And then they kind of say, oh my God, like now I've flopped something medium. Should I jam? Should I fold? I don't have anything. I don't know how to take a line that represents what I want my opponent to think I have, and they kind of get themselves in these tricky situations. So that's kind of one of the reasons why it is good to hammer button opens, because you get these people who you know that they have a weak range, and even though they're in position, they probably can't really play it that well anyway. So that could be in theory one reason why it seems like people are kind of pounding you.
Well, you mentioned in answering Adam's question, or trying to, you said it's hard to know for sure without knowing maybe Adam's stacking off too light, or maybe he's folding to the 3-bets too much. You said you mentioned something, it would be impossible to know without looking at his HUDs or looking at his stats or his database or whatever. Is that part of a lot of the coaching that you do, and is that like a requirement? I guess let's pimp your site real quick. PLO Quick Pro. You've got a lot of materials out there, educational tools. Is having a HUD sort of integral to the process of learning how to play good PLO? It sounds like it's something that you recommend.
I think that having a HUD is important, but I think that a lot of new players put too much emphasis on the HUD, though. And a common mistake that I see players make is they think that the more information they have, the more precise their decisions will be. And I actually find that most players, especially when you're learning a new game, it's really easy to have information overload. These guys will come to me, they're playing 10 cent, 25 cent, 25 cent, 50 cent or something. So, it could be lower micro stakes, and they want me to evaluate their game. And I look at their HUDs, and they've got HUDs 3 times as big as Phil Galfin's, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, there's no way that you're even using 10% of what's on this thing. It's just a distraction. It's like it's similar to a golfer who becomes really passionate about golf, and they really want to get good at it, and they go and they buy like a $2,000 set of golf clubs, when realistically they probably just need to work on their swing a little bit more rather than don't get me wrong, like a nice set of clubs, it's not going to hurt you, but I think that a really big extravagant HUD, if you don't know how to use it, can be distracting and kind of it can deflect your focus from the stuff that's more important, which is board texture, SPR, maybe your opponent's bet sizing. And a lot of times when I do coaching with players, I really try to focus on developing good observational skills about the stuff that's not included in a HUD. And I think to beat basically like PLO 200 and below, you don't need very many HUD stats. What you need more is kind of a core knowledge of how PLO works, which is what we focus on at Quick Pro.
One thing that I was thinking of when Adam said that he was buying in for 50 big blinds was I was scrolling through Twitter and I saw that Lex Veldhouse tweeted at Ben86, because Ben was on Joe Ingram's podcast, and he mentioned somewhere in the episode that Joe was asking about why he short stacks the games.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
I saw this too.
Yeah, and then Lex was calling him out. He's like, the day after you said that, nobody in Zoom 500 is reloading anymore. So do you have a little insight on what that was about?
Yeah, well, I mean, the idea is that if you've got 15 big blinds or something, or 8, let's just call it 10 big blinds, and you can get all in pre, and then there's still action, right, between the other players who are deeper than you. Let's say they start the hand with 100 big blinds. Well, one of them typically will end up folding for that bigger side pot or whatever. So then you're basically, you of course like get heads up in a pot with the extra dead money is the idea.
You get free protection
and
from the other.
Yeah, you get free protection. Exactly. Is what happens. So that's what he was referring to.
Mm-hmm.
Terrence mentioned your site, PLOquickPro.com. Welcome to the Pokercast family. You're going to be our strategy sponsor. You're going to be furnishing us with strategy minutes. We'll bring you in the Ross report somehow and talk about some PLO hands. Welcome aboard. Thanks for jumping in.
Hey, that's what I'm here for. I'm really excited. I've always loved the 2+2 community, and I'm looking forward to spending some time with you guys, improving your PLO game, and everyone else that's listening to this.
Awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. I noticed you're in Denver. Obviously a big week coming up for you guys. Can Peyton pull this off?
I think so. Actually, I was at the AFC Championship game.
Oh, were you?
I was at the division. I was at the AFC Championship game. I was at the divisional game. I went to a couple of other big games this year. We played Cincinnati it was Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football, and played the Patriots in the snow. I was at that game. It's been like I don't usually go to that many games, but this is, coincidentally been a year where I kind of went to a lot of games, so I feel more emotionally invested in this team. And I do think that people are feeling more confident this year somehow, even though it seems our team was better a couple of years ago when we got crushed by the Seahawks. It seems like we have better leadership, and I think that our ability to really pull out close games has been pretty evident. So I think that we have a decent shot. I mean, Vegas isn't giving us a very good shot, but who needs Vegas anyway?
Are you going to go to the game?
No. I'm gonna. I thought about that, but I was thinking it'd be more fun to watch it in a bar.
Yeah, football's more fun. I think football's more fun watching it than that game. I've been to a couple games now, and it just seems like, I don't know if it's the camera work or what it is, but yeah, especially when you're in the Super Bowl and
there's
your buddies.
So much production on NFL now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things that was fun about being at the AFC Championship was everyone there is a Denver fan. I think that sometimes if you were to go to the Super Bowl, it's half and half, and it's not, again, like I really enjoy the camaraderie of it.
Right. Fair enough. Thanks so much.
Half and half. It's just a bunch of rich people who can afford the tickets sometimes too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not as. Yeah, I totally get it.
A lot of selfies.
It is, yeah. Thanks so much, John. Really appreciate your time, sir, and look forward to talking to you for the next while and getting some PLO advice.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys. Good luck.
T, sorry, I didn't mean to call you out there. I didn't know you were playing a bunch of PLO.
Well, I'm motivated now. Not because of what you said. I don't care about your opinion. Everybody knows that. But now I'm motivated. I've got some tips for jumping in the PLO. I think I'm try to put in a little bit of volume this way, and maybe even sign up for some of the stuff at PLO Quick Pro. I'm excited to do this. Let's all jump in on the PLO journey together, because I'm excited to play this, because maybe it is the game of the future, but at the very least, like you said, it's better than those no limit games where it's just like 12% seeing the flop and stuff like that these days in a lot of places. It's really painful. I'm more impressed with you, by the way, and you didn't once call him Don Beauprez. That's great. You did not refer to him as the former Minnesota North Stars and Washington Capitals goaltender, which I had it at like minus 200 that you were going to.
I grew up watching Don Beauprez by goal. I mean, that's it is an achievement for me to not do that. That's good. All right. So we got some more stuff coming up after the break. We got to make a decision. I think we've been pretty long here in the first two segments. We've got a bunch of Ross report, and we've also got a bunch of emails. So we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do.
We can cut down my hands.
We'll do maybe half and half.
The hands aren't changing from week to week.
That's true. All right.
Have John come down and analyze.
That's true. That might be helpful as well. But we're coming back right after the break. You're listening to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. More right after this.
I defend 8-9 offsuit versus a middle position open with Annie's, 40 big blinds deep. I flop a double gutter on Queen 10-6-2 spades, and I like to check raise his c-bet as it's my worst possible draw in this situation, and his range contains more spades, thus making it a hand I'm going to free barrel on a lot of runouts. He folds to a check raise and I win the pot.
Team Pro Online's Mickey Moment Mori Peterson is a Supernova VIP. This is the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club.
Okay, people, most of the kittens have perished. There are a few left you can save, though, and here's how to do it. Get involved with the Pokercast by emailing your questions, suggestions for the show, or even record a sound clip. Adam will be using the best ones on the air. Well, let's face it, probably the worst ones as well. I can see you there at your computer. Send an email right now. Totally disagree with one of Adam's takes last week? Send an email. Love last week's interview? Email. Want to know how much cash Adam has on him right now? Email. Pokercast@2plus2.com is the address. Ship the funny to Adam today.
Hey, it's Mike from the 2+2 store and ProfessionalPoker.com. 2+2 is pleased to announce the release of their most anticipated book in ages, Applications of No Limit Hold'em, a guide to understanding theoretical sound poker by Matthew Jonda. This book will give you the ability to create the bet sizings and ranges which will beat the better players. The theory in this book is not designed to be complex or abstract, but rather it's intended to be applied immediately, producing better overall results. Many confusing concepts, such as overbetting, balancing multiple bet sizing ranges, donk betting, and check raising as a preflop raiser, are crucial to a player's strategy, despite few players implementing them or talking about them. And after reading this book, you should be able to not only conceptually understand these ideas, but also know how to begin incorporating them into your game, and thereby successfully compete against tough opponents. And at the 2+2 store, we accept all credit cards, plus PayPal and NetTeller.
So, here we are. Now we're the old people who think the younger generation's music sounds like shit.
Back in my day, our music was better. Not this garbage the youngest listen to.
Now, my story begins in 1962.
Back in my day, music used to be good. Warber, 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 warber.
Look, that bearded old man haranguing the crowd over there. Let's see if we can understand him.
Clap your hands, everybody, and everybody. Clap your hands to the people up top. Clap your hands to the people in the middle. Clap your hands to the people up top. Clap your hands to the people down here. Clap your hands. Let me hear it.
Holy senior citizens. Yeah, I know. As though we had stepped back thousands of years in time. Ridiculous.
Welcome back to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. Let's get to the Invitational. This is the PokerStars Invitational for PokerCast listeners. We give out the password and the format a couple weeks in advance. This weekend's is January 31st on Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Added to your grand $1.10 buy-in, $500 added by PokerStars. And this week it is 4-Max No Limit Hold'em. The password is TCOOP, TCOOP. Of course, those who will be playing the final Sunday of TCOOP jump into the PokerCast Invitational. Next Sunday, February 7th, we are going to have Zoom PLO 6-Max. And the password is going to be 100 million.
Yeah.
For the 100 millionth.
You can punish the button.
PokerStars.
Punish the button openers.
Punish the openers. So that's the Invitational for this week. Do you want to do some 140 or less? We haven't done that in a bit. Let's do a little 140 or less.
It's 140 characters. That's it. I love hashtags. I love all of them.
Terrence Chan.
It needs more than 140 characters to express itself.
140 or less.
At Draft Cheat, betting on Donald Trump to become president is the ultimate life hedge. I love this tweet, T. If you're one of these guys, if Trump gets elected president, I'm moving out of the country.
What's the price on it right now? What kind of price?
I think he's like 5-1 or something. He went from 300 to 1 down to about 5 or 6 to 1 now, or something like that.
Imagine the guy like sweating it. If you actually got Trump at 300 to 1, do you think? I mean, there's got to be obviously somebody out there who got it at that price. He must be laying it off all over the place.
You would think. But, I mean, obviously, you're never going to get enough for it to be a life hedge. You're never going to be able to get enough down on it to, win $1 million or anything like that, depending on what it's worth to you.
You don't think? I mean, maybe some of the European sports books that have really high limits, like maybe spike a mill ball off of it.
It's true. Maybe you put 100,000 down or something like that. I don't know.
There's a Republican debate tonight. I think it just happened.
Nobody watches because Trump's not in it.
Yeah, he's boycotting.
He blew it off
because he's mad. He's mad somebody said something bad about him.
I think he probably blew it off because he doesn't have a lot to win. He's probably got more to lose by saying something really stupid than gaining at this point.
You think he's smart enough to know
No,
that?
I think his handlers probably are. But at Greg Merson. So Greg was talking about, there was a Twitter conversation going on about the town hall that we talked about earlier. And one of the things they were talking about was having 45 minutes levels on day one for some of the events. And Greg Merson came on and he said, 45-minute day ones will keep me away from playing certain events, paying full rake for quicker structures. And I thought that was a good point. And I think I'm not sure if they were making levels longer later, T, but it seems like that would be a bad idea to me to make them 45-minute levels.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah, I mean that's really short when you consider the pace of live poker. I think what a lot of people would probably like is to eliminate, some of the earlier levels, 25, 25, 25, 50. But the WSOP is justifiably concerned that would turn off a lot of the recreational players who think that they, playing deep and they want to maximize their WSOP experience, last at least 3 or 4 hours as long as they don't run super bad. And having shorter levels, but keeping the same starting level is sort of a way to do that. It busts people out a bit quicker, but not so quick that they can't that they don't get their experience. Whereas starting it earlier will definitely bust people, quicker. Like if you're only starting off with, say, 40 big blinds or something like that, and then you're quickly going to 20 after 2. But yeah, I mean it's hard. We crap on the WSOP a lot for a lot of the decisions they make, but a lot of these structure things are tough. And at the same time, last year, remember, there was the huge issue of tournaments running way, way, way too long, especially the limit events. I mean, Merson, I think, is mostly a no-limit player, a big bet player, so I don't know if that affected him. I could be wrong about that. He may play limit games. But certainly, like, they got flack last year about basically too good of a structure, too long of a structure. So sometimes they can't win either way.
And then the World Series was talking about the shot clocks, and they tweeted that concern is the shot clock could do the opposite. 30-second per person times 9 is 4.5 minutes per bet. Average hand isn't that.
Well, that's stupid. Yeah. Like, obviously, it's not. You're not going to have 9 people pre-flop taking 30 seconds per person. And not only that, when is the last time you've ever seen a 9-way flop in any WSOP event? It doesn't happen. Almost every flop is either heads up or is heads up or a 3-way at best, sometimes 4-way. But yeah, that's a total straw man. We talked about this earlier in the show. They're just inventing arguments that have no basis in reality.
Remco was down at the Aussie Millions, sitting there watching a lot of poker, I would imagine, over the last week. He tweeted, "I'm not sure what's worse, watching excessive tankers in poker or waiting for a website to load on slow internet." So it sounds like he had a bit of both.
So Australia, I mean, is a very well-developed country. It's, an OECD country, one of the wealthiest countries in the world, good quality of living. Their internet still sucks. This is like the year this is 2016 now. Sounds like their internet is still not good. Like, it wasn't good in like 2014, 2015. I was first in Australia, I think, in 2007. And, they still had like the thing where if you go over a certain amount of gigabytes or whatever, like, you pay extra. So like the place I was renting from, like, they had to warn me not to use too much internet. I'm like, what is this 1998? And I'm dialing in to like America Online and CompuServe. Like, what is it? And so, yeah, like Australia, I guess maybe it's just like how far away they are from all the other like major communication hubs. It might just be a distance thing, but their internet is not on par with the rest of the quality of that beautiful country.
You're going surfing on the internet.
At Phil Galfon.
I forgot to play the
China
in the Trump.
Yeah,
usually you're right on that. At Phil Galfon tweets, help settle a debate. Under the gun open, cutoff calls, button calls, big blind calls. Who cold called? I think 2 people cold called there. I think
there's an open and 2 cold callers.
Well, but the button calls, I don't think
that's not a cold call.
The big blind.
There's 2 cold callers.
Yeah.
Cold means that you didn't have money in there, and that's why it's called cold.
Yeah.
You called cold without money in there. So the big blind did not cold call. The big blind just called.
Right.
The cutoff and the button cold call.
We agree.
That's easy. A man of Galfon's stature doesn't know this?
I think probably what happened was a lot of people that he was talking to didn't know it, so he was curious to see who knew it and who didn't. At Venetian Poker Room, we're pleased to announce Annette Oberstad is as ambassador of the Sands Poker Room. Welcome to the team. Now, am I the only one who finds it odd that the Venetian Poker Room is selecting Annette 15 as their ambassador?
It's possibly the most ironic choice that you could
right?
Like, do they know what the 15 means?
Do they know why she's popular and why she's a big deal?
Yeah, that That's fantastic. I don't think we need to comment on that further.
We'll just leave it there.
The most ironic thing that it's ever. Cue the Alanis Morissette for this one.
Ironic, yeah. All right, there were some comments in the show thread that I wanted to quickly get to. VVU Steve said, "Hey guys, I was playing in the new RA Daily Poker Tournament, and then a high roller 25K fired up next to us. I saw Phil Galfond playing, and then I saw his wife Farah playing in our tourney. We ended up making the final table. I busted 8th, but could not hang around till the end. Farah was still playing with 4 left. Anyway, you can find out if she took it down. Keep up the great work." So I sent Phil a text, and he said she finished 4th. He left when she was 4-handed. She ended up finishing 4th. So that's obviously a brag that Phil answers my texts clearly. Now let's.
Okay, you were answering a brag email.
What's that?
It's okay. You were answering a brag email about a guy who's playing with Alphonse Boy.
True. Let's do some mailbag.
And now. That right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay?
Mailbag. Email number 1.
Instead of doing just emails, we're going to add the voicemails. I believe we have 3 voicemails.
Yeah.
We're going to count those in because I want to get to the high numbers of the email drop just so we get there today because I love them so much.
This first one is it's a little bit hard to understand, but we'll go for it.
Okay, let's.
Hey guys, this is Donovan on the 2+2 forums, aka Navanad, here with my 9-year-old playing poker buddy, Luca Colbert, and she's got some questions.
This is Luca Colbert, host of the Colbert Report and co-host of Navanad Poker on YouTube. I have no idea what calls is. My question is, as a 9-year-old poker prodigy, do you think poker is a good career choice for me when I grow up? Also, when defending a big blind versus steals, should I 3-bet a polarized or linear range? Oh, and I want to guess how much money Adam has. I'd say about $350.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, boy.
That is maybe the greatest voicemail email we've ever got, period. End of. Just drop the mic and walk out. That is fantastic. All right, Luca, I'm going to handle a couple of the questions. Hopefully T can answer the defending the big blind one. I'm going to say poker for you as a female is going to be an excellent career choice, especially when you start so young. And you learn the ropes from your dad there and become a heck of a poker player. Sure, a great thing to get into. As far as
Forget a net 15. It's all about Luca_9.
Luca 9, yeah, exactly. How much money I have? This is funny. I have $35. I have 1/10 of $350. So I have 300. Oh, no, it's 350 somethings. But that's how much I have. I have $35. So Terrence, what should she do in the big blind with her 3-betting range?
Well, Luca, generally, you'll learn this as you become a more advanced poker player, but in general, you don't want your range to be tremendously polarized early in the hand because it makes your opponent much more likely to be able to read your hand and your range by the end of the hand. So if you're not able to represent a wide range on the river, that can definitely cause you problems down the road. But we can wait until you're 11 to worry too much about that kind of stuff. I think that I don't want. I'm not quite sure that it's appropriate to discuss that. Merging ranges at the age of 9.
That is my favorite voicemail ever. That was fantastic.
All right.
Email number 2.
Hey, Adam and Terrence. My name is Chris. I live in Gainesville, Florida. And I had an issue recently at a home game I wanted to get your guys' opinion about. It's about 30 people who meet once a week. This is the first time I had played there, but it's fully catered. They take a small rake, and it's an eclectic mix of people. Anyway, I went, and before I went, I was deciding whether or not to take 1 or 2 buy-ins, as it was the first time I'd been there, and had to work the next morning, so I didn't know how long I was going to play. I decided on 1 buy-in, but then at the last second decided to take 2. So when I got there, for some reason, me being an idiot, thinking that I only had 1 buy-in on me, when I bought my chips, I handed the guy 2 buy-ins, but asked specifically for 1. This guy, I guess not being the honest type, didn't say anything or didn't count it, and I didn't notice until the end of the night when I cashed out and was putting my winnings back in my wallet that I didn't have my second buy-in that I never ended up needing. So anyway, I didn't feel as though I had any type of recourse as I had already left the game. So I wanted to hear what you guys thought I should have done in that situation, and because I truly didn't know. Thanks, guys, for listening to my voicemail. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Chris. I think what I would have done right away was, as soon as I realized it, I would have gone to them and said, hey, I think I gave you 2 buy-ins. Can you check the pool to see if because hopefully they kept track of how many buy-ins they had. If they didn't, then it's your word against that person.
Well, they have to, otherwise they don't know what the prize pool is, and they can't actually properly award a prize pool.
No, I'm saying if they keep track of who bought how. Like if one guy bought 7 buy-ins, they're not going to go if he won 7 or 6. If it's a 1 buy-in and then 3 people that they remember exactly 3 people shot second bullets, then they're going to be able to do the math and add it up. But if it's retrievable, I guess, to figure out how much it is, then hopefully they would be cooperating.
It sounded like it was a cash game because he said he was cashing out.
Oh, it was? Sorry, I misunderstood that. I thought it was tournaments he was talking about.
I was under the impression that it was a tournament as well, because if you're handing, like, I don't know what the buy-in, but let's say he gave him, $400 instead of $200 with a $200 buy-in. I mean, why wouldn't you expect to get back $400 in chips
right away?
If it's a cash game?
Yeah.
But if it's a $200 buy-in tournament, that's where I thought the employee or the owner or whoever was doing the chip running in that case could have pocketed the 200 and kept the 200. So I guess it's not clear. So Ross makes a valid point that it might have been a cash game, in which case it's much more flagrant to be able to it's much more ballsy to just give somebody 200 after they've handed you 400 or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But I interpret the question the same way as Adam.
So, I mean, when I'm playing if this is a cash game situation, when I'm playing in a cash game and I buy in from a chip runner or the first thing I do is count my chips when I sit down at the table, right? So, I mean, I don't want to blame Chris here, but, at some point you've got to be keeping track of exactly what you're doing with buy-ins and stuff. Now, having said that, if it's retrievable somehow, right, then hopefully the place is cooperative enough to try and do that. But
I feel like it was the teller.
It's just going to come down to your word against their word most of the time in this spot, I feel like.
And I think it is a good spot to, if it was somebody who just worked for the room and not like the guy who was actually running the game, I think it is a good spot to go, like, listen, like, the guy in the red shirt with the mustache, he took my money, and I'm pretty sure he shorted me in this way, in this described situation, because the guy who runs the joint probably wants to know about that level of dishonesty, and then you'll sort of figure it out, whose side he takes, what they're going to do about it, if there's a camera to be checked or anything like that. But yeah, it definitely doesn't hurt to go in and ask.
Indeed.
Email number 3.
Hey guys, it's Bud Pope. Not much to say, just hoping you guys have a good show, and also want to hear your thoughts on the new Ray Vitar news that showed up last night. I don't know if you guys saw Remco's tweet or not, but he got married in October, and he is looking healthy and jail-free. So just want to make sure you guys hit that on your show tonight. Take care. Bye.
All right, thanks, Pope. Pope's doing our show prep for us. Yeah, that's nice of him. We covered that already.
Were you 2 hours ago?
He what?
Or were you 2 hours ago when we were doing that segment?
Indeed. So thank you for the reminder, but we did talk about that already. Goddamn Batar. Indeed. All right, so next email.
Email number
004.
Marty says...
Guess that was your favorite.
4 is awesome. Marty, hey guys, I just came home from a short stint in Melbourne and would love to get your thoughts on a couple of hands I played while I was there. They're both 5-5 with an optional $10 straddle, no limit cash games on different days against different villains. The first hand is a $10 straddle. The second is not. The first hand was late at night with a few players drinking and some of the craziest action I've ever seen. The villain in this hand recently made some really horrible plays, including calling a pre-flop 3-bet shove for 1,000 with pocket threes. I started the hand with about 1,700, and he had me covered. The villain limps. Other player limps, and I'm on the button with queens, and I make it 50 to go. I get calls from both of the limpers. The flop comes deuce 4-7 rainbow. It's check to me, and I bet 105. Villain calls, and the rest of the player folds. The turn's a 9, still rainbow, and the villain check calls 175. The turn is another deuce, so now it's deuce 4-7 9 deuce. The villain checks. I bet 275, and he check raises to 1,200. What do you guys think of this spot? It's a really tough spot. It's made more difficult by the fact that this guy called 1,000 pre in a 5-5 game with pocket threes. I don't know. I think you got to it's one of those ones I think you got to be actually there to make a decision. I don't know how I can figure out how, or to make some recommendation to the spot T. It's just a really brutal spot.
It is. I mean, I would think that if you call, it qualifies under the category of a hero call, and that's why I'm inclined to fold, right? So again, anytime I don't have a really great reason to make a hero call, I'm not going to. And so
But you don't think the reason is that he called 1,000 a couple of hands ago with 2 threes pre?
I don't think that's a good enough reason, and I'll explain why. And it's that people often call off really late, but they don't necessarily check call, check jam late. I mean, that's such a strong line for this person to take that I think very often this guy was slow playing a set, or he just has because he probably plays loose and probably has anything. He could have anything like, just a random deuce in his hand. He could have 4 deuce and have 2 pair. You could just have like ace deuce suited and it was like hanging on for dear life. There's a lot of garbage that he can have, and you're not getting a very good price. You bet 275, he's check raised to 1,000, so it's 900 to call, and so there's before I don't even think there's 900 in there, so you're not getting a very good price here. So I'm inclined to fold and be really unhappy about it. I do think that I do like the line. I do think that you should bet every street here, but I kind of inclined to fold once it's there, unless I've got a strong read that this guy is just an utter whack job and he's trying to blow me off it with 5-3 or 5-6 or something, or 8-10 or any. There are a lot of straight draws, in fairness, that could be inclined to make a move, but I don't think. Usually, people don't just blast the check raise to 1,200 too. I'd be curious to see if he won the hand with pocket threes and what his state of mind might be, because that might sway the decision a little bit too.
I give it some thought and decide that he could be overplaying a hand like tens or jacks, or just losing his mind, thinking I don't have a strong enough hand to call. I call and he shows me ace deuce. So pretty crazy hand. Next hand.
I don't think he has tens. I don't think he has tens or jacks there very often. I mean, if you're going to overplay tens or jacks, you're not gonna do it in that way. You're going to do it earlier in the hand.
I think he has aces there more than he has tens or jacks. Just limp call.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
The next hand is the following day. It's pretty early in the session. I don't know much about the villain other than he's a relatively young Singaporean guy and seems to know how to play, but doesn't seem to be a fantastic player. We're about 800 deep for the hand. It folds to the villain, who raises to 25 from the hijack, and I call with 5-6 off on the button, and we're heads up. The flop comes 5-6-10 with 2 hearts. Villain checks, I bet 50, and he check raises to 125, and I call. I was considering getting it in right there, but my plan was to fade a heart and anything that is perceived, anything in his perceived 2-pair range on the turn, and then turn up the heat instead of playing for stacks against a hand that is likely doing really well against me on the flop. Turn brings an offsuit king, and he bets 225. I don't love it now, and he seems pretty relaxed, but I call. The turn brings an offsuit queen, and he bets 325. I start talking to him and give away my holding, and he's very relaxed and happy to have a chat. After about 3 minutes in the tank, I fold, and he doesn't show. That's a weird one, given that he barrels, with the 10 and queen or the king, and the queen on the turn on the river. King on the turn, queen on the river. That's when he's laying you that kind of price on the river, 325. That's a tough fold for me there.
Is that because like you think there's so many draws on the flop that you think he has draws fairly often?
Yeah, I think he has draws and he bombs. Maybe he had ace king and he paired his king on the turn, ace king of hearts, a hand like that. I think he's going to play that way. So yeah, I don't think I'm folding for that price in the river.
I think it's a very close decision, and I don't mind the fold at all. I think he did the right thing by sort of tabling his hand and trying to get some information about this, and based on what he said, he felt like the guy was pretty strong, so he decided to fold. I think it's a very marginal spot. I do like the way he played the hand, other than like kind of calling from the button with 6-5 off. I think you can have. I don't think you need to play all your 6-5 offsuits in that situation, even when you're playing deep. Even and I assume it's not even super deep. I'm going to guess it's like a 5-5 game. I think it's correct to just call on the flop instead of getting it in. I think there's an adverse selection problem. If you get it in, you're very likely against a set or at worst a big draw a lot of the time. So I like taking the passive line. And on the river, I mean, you're getting a price. It's close. It's close. I mean, if you think the guy is strong, then folding is fine. My default might be to call.
I think he plays aces like that a lot too. Yeah, it's just a tough spot.
I think our hero plays aces, can play aces like that a lot. Actually, that's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
Because our hero threatens to have aces quite a lot by raising pre-flop, calling a check raise on the flop, and then calling again on the turn.
Right.
Email number.
It's number 5.
This is LA Player. I heard your email last week about home games in LA. Here's a bit of gossip and one strategy question. We get a lot of tournament players and name pros that come through. Most don't do very well. One exception is David Benjamin. He's been playing here for about 6 months and killing it. Sometimes in the home games we get total degens who straddle every hand. Yes, every hand. Unlimited straddles from any position are allowed. They will frequently take their option and raise pre-flop. Although it sounds like a dream player, it can be difficult to deal with. One of these guys in particular is trouble. He's not a bad player. He just likes to gamble and has no fear. How would you deal with someone like this? Do you want him on your right or left? Remember, if he's on your right, you act first every hand pre-flop, regardless of button position. How would that affect your ranges? If he's on your left, then you're playing bloated pots out of position. This can be a real issue late at night when stack sizes have become large.
Well, I think he understands the situation very, very well. Like if the stack size is relatively small, then you definitely don't want him on your left. But I would still think it's still definitely a really good spot, and it's obvious the situation, but it's still obviously a great spot to be in.
Just super high variance, right?
On your left, because you're able to limp with a bunch of strong hands or just cold call with a bunch of strong hands. If he's going to raise his option super, super liberally, then you can take your hands like ace king suited and stuff like that and just pound it back. You're trapping the field halfway in between after they call his raise, because they all call his raise, and then you get to mash it again. It is high variance because maybe you're just going to get it in ace king suited against his like sevens or something like that if he's got no fear of gambling, and then you just open you win your flip. But it's still a great situation. So that's, I mean, the fundamental answer is when he's on your left, you're gonna have to limp a lot of big hands, and when he's on your right, you're just really gonna have to play really tight pre-flop, and that's really important. Like the thing is, like you can probably just fold ace queen offsuit, right? Like if you straddled to your right, like you're essentially under the gun. Like if you're straddling on the button and you're the small blind, it's like questionable whether you should even play like ace queen. Like it sounds atrociously nitty,
right?
But unless there's like an ante in the game, like it's not that great of a hand, because what's going to happen is that you can limp in, maybe play like a small 6-way pot, in which case your hand isn't very good, or you can raise and then like any re-raise behind you is almost certainly a better hand, or you can raise and then like a bunch of people call and you're now like this bloated pot with ace queen and like it's. You got to play pretty tight. I mean, like, pocket pairs are probably fine, 7s, 8s, 9s, that kind of thing when you're under the gun, and because those can make sets which are paid. But you would still probably want to limp a lot of your big hands. Like you can still lay aces or kings under the gun, and you would want to limp like a large variety of your playing range, just because if he is really just re-raising his option a lot of the time or raising his option a lot of the time.
Yeah, it would seem to me like, can't you trap? Like, let's say you're to his left and you're under the gun, like you said. He straddles. Your next act, you limp with ace queen. A couple people limp, and if he takes his option a lot, you get to take advantage of that and isolate yourself against him, don't you?
You do, I guess. I mean, it depends how deep it is here, right? So, but if he raises and then you're going to put in another raise with your ace queen. Now you've got to play this big pot with ace queen out of position against this guy who plays reasonably well. Like, is it for certain that you're going to be showing a profit against his 10-8 suited or whatever it is? It's not that clear to me, I guess.
There could be another guy in between who had the same idea too.
That's a good point. Yeah, people are also going to limp behind you with big hands. That's why being out of position really sucks, and it's going to make you play super tight.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so we got a bunch more emails. We're going to get to them next week. We're getting a bit long. We want to get to some Ross report.
Good old Roscoe. Sure glad he's all right.
Listen, boy, you gotta pick your spots good. You gotta make hay while the sun shines. Hey, good. You dipstick!
It's time for a Roscoe report.
All right, we got boom player hands.
All right, you're playing online this week?
Yeah, I wasn't feeling super great, and just practicing in the low stakes.
Gotcha.
Got some good hands to talk about.
All right. First hand is you're in the cutoff.
Yeah.
There's a
all
raise.
These hands are at 10 cent, 25 cent.
10 cent, 25 cent. You start the hand with $30. There's a raise in front of you, and you 3-bet with the king, queen, 10, jack, with the 10, jack of spades, and get a call on the button, a call on the big blind, and the original raiser calls. The flop is queen, 10, 4. It's check to you. You bet half, 3/4 pot there, I think.
No, I bet $2 into 9.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Okay, you bet 2 into 9. Why so small in the queen 10 4?
Because the guy on my left is going to shove a lot and reopen it.
Okay.
That's some good observational skills. So that's one thing that wasn't mentioned, but the player on his left only has $4.83. So by making that small bet, and this is a really good tip. I'm glad you did this, Ross. It will reopen. It puts a lot of pressure on the other player in the hand who has chips because it reopens action back to Ross. Ross going to bet up to. Looks like if he's got 483, he's going to bet anything up to like $2.40, but then maybe it would have been a bit too obvious. So the $2 bet here is really smart, and that's great three-handed play right there. So hats off.
So you bet 2. He raised all into $4.80.
Yeah.
And the original raiser out of position, flat calls, and you raise to all in $28.
Yeah.
And you get a call.
Yeah,
that's the power of that move. Yeah. Other than the fact that he happened to have a hand, it looks like.
Yeah, I was almost getting trapped. But yeah, I had a ton of equity. The other guy had 10-10-9-9.
He flopped middle set.
Flopped a middle set. So he was playing it pretty passively. Usually, you see people just pile it in there.
Just get it in.
But yes,
you get there with the ace on the river with the king jack. You had the queen 10. King jack hand, obviously the queen 10 4 flop. You flop open ender top 2, and hit the ace on the river for a big old pot.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunities that I've been trying to notice to realize dead money and when people are just going to call and fold in big pots.
Right. Interesting. Okay. The next hand, again, 10, 25 cent. It's folded to the button, who raises to 75. You're in the big blind with ace, king, queen at 9 with the ace, queen of hearts, and you 3-bet. And he calls, yeah?
Yeah.
The flop is 8-9-3 with 2 clubs. You lead out for 2/3 pot with top pair, and he piles it in here for 11-25, and you reship here.
Yeah.
Interesting. On the 8-9-3 board, you lead the flop. He raises, you 3-bet with 1 pair.
Yeah.
8-9 is a really 8-9 suited flop like that. You're going to run into a lot of people who are going to get money in there with the 6-7, 8-9, the wrap and a pair, the flush draw and a wrap. All those hands are not really going to go anywhere. That's a tough board, I think, to try and make a play on tee. What do you think?
But it's interesting because how far is he crushed, I guess, is the question, right? So, like you said, I think the suited 9-8 on board means he does have a higher percentage draws. Most of them are favorites. I mean, I think most of the time that you pile your money in with ace, king, queen, 9 on the 9-8-3 flop, you're going to be behind. But I'm not sure how often you're crushed.
Yeah.
And so basically the only thing that crushes you is basically sets, right? Like that's the only thing that absolutely smashes. There's a lot of things that are like kind of 60-40, 65-35 favorites in.
Yeah.
So I think it's closer than it seems for your average sort of top pair with 3 overcard kicker hands.
I didn't run like a sort of a range or do any math about it, but I thought that there's a ton of hands that'll just ship with just a bare 9, just like the flush draw like he had, and I'm actually ahead of like the the king queen 9 something, but
yeah.
Right. Yeah, you wouldn't want to do this if the money were deeper, but because you started this hand with, I guess, like $30 basically, right? So
yeah,
and it's a 3-bet pot flop. The stacked pot ratio is just 7, so I think it's all right to get it in there.
It's 120 big blinds, isn't it? 125 big blinds. You want to get in with one? I don't know. I don't like it. I just think your variance goes through the roof.
Okay, the third hand. I'm on the button with Ace 8 7 6 with the Ace 6 of hearts.
Okay, so the guy in middle position, there's a fold and a raise to full pot, and you are on the button again with Ace 8 7 6 with the Ace 6 of hearts. You flat the bet. You flat the raise. Big blind calls. The flop is Ace Ace King 2 diamonds. Big blind checks. The original raiser bets most full pot, and you flat on the button. I like the flat. I think that's the right play there. The turn's an 8, so you make second nuts. He checks. You bet $3 into a $6 pot, and he pots, and you shove your remaining chips in with the second nuts, and he calls off. I think there's pretty much only one way to play this hand. I call on the button a lot of the time with that hand, and I also get it in, I think, in the same fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and I think calling on the flop is correct. There's definitely no value to be raising. I think that would be a pretty big mistake to raise on the flop because, again, adverse selection. Once he checks you on the flop, you just kind of go, well,
on the turn.
Hopefully, he doesn't have Ace King.
Yeah, on the turn.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it at that point. So you're
that's what he's
pretty
repping.
straightforward, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you were deeper, and I thought that just the way that he played it, leading out really big and then check raising really big on the turn, it doesn't seem like somebody who's trapping with the nuts.
Yeah,
right.
So I thought that I remember when I was playing this hand, I thought that 2 kings was a hand that he would have a lot the way that he played it.
Yeah, and I think I guess I'll say that I think that he probably played the hand fine too. I mean, it's an interesting.
Oh, we didn't say
decision.
what he had. He's got kings, so he makes.
Sorry.
Yeah, he has. It's again Ace King flop. He has kings and got beat on the turn by Roscoe here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you never it's always tricky to try to pile up a bunch of money in on a 2-ace board when you don't have aces full, because this happens to you a lot of times when you get all the money in. But on the other hand, you kind of want to defend against somebody with just drive ace rivering a full house, right? So you know once the flop action happens that you're up against at least an ace. So there's a bit of a fine line for the guy holding kings full as to being like, well, do I just try to win this pot, or do I just hope that I'm not going to get smashed? And since I guess he's going to shove here thinking, well, I have to pay off anyway if this guy shoves on me.
I guess. Okay.
All
next
right.
hand.
This next hand is probably the most advanced play that's ever been made in Omaha.
Okay. So, okay, I'm looking at this hand. It's interesting already. You're in the small blind with the 10, 10, 10, 10. That's most.
No,
of the
ultimate
it's rainbow.
It
Rainbow.
blocks all the nut straights.
Okay, you got quads, and there's a raise in the cutoff, and you call in the small blind, which is awesome. All right, and the big blind folds, so it's
You
two of you to
become
the
ace
flop.
king queen now. That's all. King queen jack.
The flop is 9, 8, 6.
Oh, just as good. That'll do it. That might be even better. That might be even better because people are much less likely to have top set here.
Yeah.
You check, and he bets quarter pot, and you raise it up here, and he folds.
Oh, that's it? I thought you were going to have to barrel every street.
I know. I wish.
I was really hoping that this just involved a jack on the turn, and and you just got to just barrel every shot. I'm so disappointed it ended on the flop.
I know.
That is hilarious.
I was, and aces, probably quad aces and quad tens are really the only quads that you could play for value.
That's a screenshot worthy one. I hope you have that. I hope you have that screenshotted and you can put that.
I have it. I have it in
the old
Beauprez.
Pokercast forum.
That's a good one.
All right, the last hand is a 2-card Omaha hand.
Okay.
Hang
on.
2-card Omaha, also known as Texas Hold'em.
Oh, okay. So we got a no limit hold'em hand for the people.
You may play 0, 1, or both of your cards.
Yeah, zero. You can play 0 cards.
And we don't have a clip of Patrick saying the most you could bet or raise is the size of your stack.
That's right. This is a
it's a tournament. I've been playing. I do enjoy the no limit hold'em tournaments.
Okay.
I definitely I enjoy no limit hold'em tournaments more than pot limit Omaha tournaments.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's a little bit more of like a finesse to it.
Okay. Than just jamming your money in.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm playing the late night 1350, and I am in.
You're in the big blind. You start the hand with 23,000-ish, and you have the ace queen offsuit, the 350-700 blind level. There's a raise to 2,100 out of position. Sorry, yeah, in early position. You call. Everybody folds, you call. The flop is ace queen 3. You flop the top 2. There's 2 diamonds on board. You check the flop, and he checks behind. 3 of diamonds on the turn. So now it's ace queen 3-3 with 3 diamonds. You bet about half pot, a little less than half pot, and he calls. The river is a 5. You now bet half pot, 5,000, and he ships. I've paused it there to not know what he has. That's a pretty That's a pretty strong line that he took. T, I don't know. What do you think there?
I agree. It is a pretty strong line. However, I don't see any way I'm folding this hand.
I can't see how you fold it, but wow,
there's just not enough hands that beat you, right? You're blocking the top. You're blocking the top 2 sets, and the bottom card paired on the turn, meaning that he only has like one combination of 3s in his hand. It's really hard to conceive of something that got to this point. I mean, pocket 5s is a possibility, maybe if he really didn't believe you on the turn, but I haven't seen the results of the hand either. I think if he's value betting, it's. I mean, sometimes sure you'll run into aces full, queens full, whatever. But I think I bet a lot of the time you actually he thinks he's value jamming a flush here. I mean that's
which he
the
is.
problem.
Yeah, I can't beat a flush.
He can't beat a flush. Yeah, he's value jamming a flush.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, no, I understand you can't beat that. It is a gross spot, but I
don't know how.
Yeah,
you fold.
I mean, I can't see folding here. It's
you got rough. One of the hands correct.
All right, I gotta look now. He has the wow. How does he get there with the 5s? Ace 3 queen 3 5.
He was a non-believer on the turn.
That's the thing.
This is very common. I think this is actually really common in no limit hold'em these days. Is that when the pre-flop raiser checks behind on the flop, now suddenly he feels very, very sticky on the turn.
Yeah.
So even though they're just basically like choosing to float the turn at this point, just hoping that they have some combination of showdown value, and it's not necessarily wrong, but I think that style of play is very common, checking behind on the flop, making people more defensive, and then being more defensive on the turn.
Yeah, I think I missed something earlier in the show. Did I miss something that you tried to convey?
In the first segment when we tried to just throw you the biggest softball. It was the biggest, roundest. It was a beach ball.
You threw me a beach ball, and I missed with like a Barney Rubble bat.
Oh, I'm glad you got it. It's only been 3 hours since we mentioned that.
I had a life-changing score this week.
So it wasn't
guys.
the biggest score this week in Pokercast Crewland. So Roscoe here was playing the Hot 44. Is that right?
22.
The Hot 22. And went on a deep run.
The fish gets bigger, right? Like you always want to exaggerate the size of the fish you caught. So let's call it $44.
I can't exaggerate because you guys were witnesses, and I was on break, so I was like, "Oh, I'll type this into chat, into Skype, into our Pokercast group, and see if these guys are here." And
so you went on a deep run. How many people in the tournament?
It was like 900.
Okay.
It's the one of the bigger nightlies.
First was what?
First was 3,100. I was chip leader with like 15 people left, and then entered the final table not as chip leader, and then I I'm kind of angry about a few hands that I played. I was 3-betting like almost every hand that I played.
Really?
And
You're a little on the aggro side. Yeah, it was fun though.
And so there was I lost like about half my stack in one hand, and then ended up shipping it with the king 9 off in middle position, and got called by king queen.
Wow.
And your ultimate finish was 5th, is that right?
Yeah, I finished in 5th.
For how much?
5th. Yeah, so
like 850.
Tank Moylan's got nothing on the 5th place finisher of the hot.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. 5th place
Where's
champion.
Tank?
5th place champion of the Hot 22. I don't know, but he did it in a live tournament. So
That's true.
He is the
yeah,
third
but
place
we
champion.
all know that live tournaments are full of fish, and all the real players play online. Right? Like nobody's ever moved overseas to play live. Well, I guess they have, but you don't hear about them as much.
China!
So next week, guys, I think that's going to do it for this week. We got a bunch of emails. We'll roll over to our next show. Next week is a bit tricky for me. I got a hockey tournament. My kid is playing in a tournament in Squamish, which
that's a long drive from Maple Ridge. I know people aren't necessarily up on their Western Canadian geography,
and they're goofy.
But that is it takes you like an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to Vancouver, and that's because you drive like a maniac. And then Squamish, you're looking at like the better part of an entire day on the road.
Depending on the traffic, it's a couple hours for sure. And then, but I wanted to say, there's a fellow who listens to our show who his son plays on a team that Rudy played in the same division. So we ended up playing his team a bunch. His name's Randy. It was nice to meet somebody who listens.
Dad, shut up!
It was fun because I took my wife over to meet him to prove that people actually listen to the show that I do every week. She just kind of rolls her eyes every time, like, "Oh, you're going to go to your show? Congratulations, good for you." I'm like, "No, somebody listens to it. I promise." So that was fun to meet Randy. But anyway, so we're in a tournament up in the lovely town of Squamish, BC, and we have to leave on Thursday, so which is the day we've been doing the show. So I think why don't we play it by ear, guys, and see if there's enough stuff to do up a show on Tuesday or Wednesday for. And
I can't. I'm working on my 10 both of those days.
It's raining out. How are you going to work on a 10?
Yeah, you caught me.
You're lying.
I will say one thing, because I'm sitting here. I'm looking at my calendar.
Yeah.
Okay, and there is a reminder for me to remind you that you've got your court date coming up. So it could be in the next episode of this Pokercast. Pokercast 397 could be the day where we find out whether Adam is even allowed to drive a car in the province of British Columbia going forward. So how's that for a teaser?
So speaking of which, my court date's Monday, and I completely forgot about it until today. So, because I was going to put it off and go to them and say, hey, I can't make it that day, whatever. So tomorrow I have to get up and go to the place where you do this and try and see if they'll put it off. I don't know if they will or not, but yeah.
You actually have to go to court tomorrow, right?
Well, you have to go to the place where it is and try and get a deferment. Or whatever
because you're supposed to go to actual court on Monday. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I'm not able to do.
GL, wish you some Pokercast karma in the courts, the traffic courts of British Columbia.
So I'd say 50-50 chance we do a show next week. We'll see how it goes, guys.
And 50-50 chance you're just like in jail.
And that's exactly right. Especially if I'm going up to Squamish drinking with the parents of the hockey team, and who knows what'll happen.
Don't drink and drive. Don't be that.
No, we're right close up there to the hotel, so we're okay with that.
Gotcha.
But some thank yous. John Beauprez, who joined us from PLOQuickPro.com. Thanks for coming on board and joining us today. And Brian Slick, of course, from PokerStars, running the T-Coop, came in to chat with us. Terrence, all the way from the beaches, the rainy beaches of.
It's sunny right now, so I'm missing tan time.
Missing some tan time. And then Roscoe for joining us out here in the suburb. Boom. That was your rim shot. See, it works for both, not just my bad jokes. I love it. And thanks to you for listening each week. Really appreciate it. We will talk to you next week. Maybe. A couple other.
Fuck. Rattled.
Totally rattled.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. The 2+2 Pokercast has been presented to you by the PokerStars VIP